memory. What are you talking about?
Hello, welcome to this week's Midweek Geek with me, the old geek. And joining me tonight, in order of arrival, we have Saxius.
Hello, hello.
We have Intellectual Quandary, Iman in disguise.
Evening all.
We have Elfbait.
Hey.
And we have Halakar.
Hello.
And of my guests, two of them have channels, so make sure you've subscribed to their channels, Intellectual Quandary and Elfbait, and show them the love that you show me. Yes, yes. Hello, Kat. How are you doing? Hello, Snufflegrunt. Hello, Andy. Hello, Daniel. Hello, Manfred. Hello, Mr. Baker. And we've got Maliki as well. It shows 7 people in chat. So there's lurkers. There's lurkers. I hope you're all keeping well. It's been a busy couple of days for me, so sadly I didn't get to make a video yesterday. I have a little side thing where I have to do the seeding for motorsport events, namely rallies, and I had a spreadsheet emailed to me yesterday morning with a list of entrants for a rally taking place in a couple of weeks, with 170 entries on it. It's the biggest rally I've ever seeded. It's a round of the British Rally Championship, so it's a bit of an honour. And it took me all bloody day. All bloody day. They do pay me for it. But don't tell the taxman. Nope. Saxius, don't tell. No, you don't work for the
I'm sitting right here.
yeah. They don't pay me a lot, but it's just a way of, I work out the amount of time I put into that spreadsheet and the amount of time I spend seeding rallies. I earn about £2.50 an hour for it. So it's not a lot. It's a bit of fun more than anything. And it's an honor because one of the guys who's taking part is an ex-Formula One driver. So it's good. It's good to be involved with those sort of people. So that's why I didn't get a video yesterday. I do apologize. And I ran a game last night. But before we come to that game, let's hear about your games. Games recently. Saxius?
Yeah, my monthly game, we couldn't have all of the players attend, so I had prepared a Cthulhu one-shot where the players basically, it's a one-shot, so I had escalating horror, and the players decided that, just as Sphinx was getting, into the sticky parts, they just decided, let's get in the car and get out of here. Which that kind of worked out, given that they'd spent a lot of time investigating, poking, role-playing. So it came up to the perfect time for them running away just as things was getting very nasty. So their characters survived, but were left mentally and emotionally scarred.
But that's the point of Call of Cthulhu. It's not to just kill characters in a bloodthirsty manner. You're meant to wear them down.
Yeah, well, they began poking
over time, yes, and make it a slow descent and enjoy the descent because all the things you find out along the way.
I did compound. It was more compound interest. It quickly began getting out of control. Once it got rolling.
Because I know often said that he didn't play Call of Cthulhu because he thought it was just utterly deadly, but it's a slow drip over time in a good game, isn't it?
Again, if you have the time and you've got continuous sessions to put into it, yes, you can go for that. As a one shot, I find that it's often you are not doing the investment, you're doing the let's get it going, and it's a race about can you get the clues quickly enough versus do you run out of time and things.
One shot Cthulhu is usually brutal.
Yeah, and that's what I was running. One shot Cthulhu's. I try to run them as brutal as possible because that's the expectation, whereas long-term campaigns are meant to be very intricate and very detailed. Outside that, I also had my 5th edition game where the players have started basically a larger expedition away from the safety of the fort that they have helped sort of create. and they are now looking to make allies with the Water Genasi, known to be in the south, but it's a long trek. And along the distance, I jingled the keys because I know the psychology of some of the players, and I managed them to be diverted. So now they are all very interested into going into a marsh and a very deadly swamp where they've been told the lands have been cursed by two spirits, one from the Fae, one from the realm of Dagon, who are locked in battle, creating an eternal monsoon in the area. But the players are insistent. They want to get in there because there is loot and magical items.
Any realm called Dagon, I would nope straight out of that.
It's too late now. They're in too deep.
No pun there.
You can know about this. It's not about whether you want to leave, it's about whether you're allowed to leave.
Iman, how's your gaming been? No, I know already, but yeah, it's better.
I mean, I thought we were going to save this till the end when everyone else has had their say, seeing as our game is the same.
Yeah, you give your side of it.
So we played. I joined OSC for the first time in quite a few months on Saturday, so that was fun. We were doing John's Caverns of Krampus thing, I believe, and we got to layer 5. Is that right?
You are on layer 5, yes.
Okay, yeah. So layer 5 was pretty much a bunch of sailing around looking for different puzzle pieces to fit into the right place and going back and forth. And we eventually did it all in one session, so it was pretty concise. But it's fun, all things considered.
While being
Quite a few dangerous encounters.
While being hunted by a pack of marine ghouls, yes.
That's what they were, ghouls, yes. These disgusting, dripping flesh, weird water creatures.
Absolutely.
So I got paralyzed by one of them. So once I started to get some feeling back and stuff like that, Slan tried to turn undead on me.
Because Slan's character has an intelligence of 4 and was worried that Iman's character might rise from the dead as a ghoul. So he stood there trying to turn Iman's character as he was getting his feeling back in his limbs. Yes. Nice.
So I shouted to them, "Hey guys, I'm okay." And Slan was like, turn undead. I said, "I'm not undead, you dumbass." And then what did we do to basically prove that I was alive and not a zombie or a ghoul, basically?
Slan's character is a cleric with a strength of 4 and an intelligence of 4. The dice loved him when that day. What about Cthulhu last night then?
Cthulhu last night was very, very interesting. I know someone threw a very left field shout, even for you. So that was definitely funny. I've never seen John react that way before.
Oh yes.
So we just got off the train from Milan to Venice. So we just got off in Venice and our baggage was being unloaded and stuff like that. And we got approached by 5 black shirts and a pudgy little fat man.
You weren't approached by them. Somebody you'd got spoken to on the train was approached by them.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, one of the NPCs on the train, Maria, was approached by them. And then we sort of came between them, like, what do you want with her? Blah, blah, blah. And then he looks at us and he's like, "You are foreigners? May I see your ID?" And 3 of us refused. And one of us basically gave his ID. And the other one, Manfred's character, should I say? I'm going to single you out here, Manfred, because you are the culprit, because it was fucking hilarious. Manfred goes, "Yeah, I'll show you my ID." Pulls out a pistol, tries to shoot the guy with 80 in his pistol skill, but somehow only manages to graze him. At which point the 5 black shirt thugs just piled on him and just beat him unconscious. And
it wasn't there was no major wound. It was just a bang, bang, bang to the head.
No, it was just a bunch of minor wounds that all took him down to 0 HP. So he wasn't dying, he was just unconscious. And the pudgy little fat man was like, "Let that be a lesson to you." I don't know why I'm Japanese all of a sudden, but
I can't do an Italian accent either, so I sounded all sorts of silliness when doing that. But yeah, it was a good session. It was a good session. Hello
Very
to those who
interesting.
joined chat. It's Straw Piglets joined chat, and I see the Crafting Gamer and Dirty History and Hobbies. Good evening. Elfbait, your game was called off on Monday night, wasn't it?
Monday night, and then also we didn't game Sunday either. So,
That's a bit shit.
and then I'm not gaming again this Sunday.
That's even shitter.
Well, I mean, Sunday was Easter, so I had family
Yeah, true.
stuff, and then Monday, but two people have issues that they couldn't show up, that made it impossible for them to show up, and it was probably a good thing because I spent all night until 12 a.m. on a tornado watch with ping pong ball sized hail falling in some areas. So, yeah.
That's because you now live in the Midwest, don't you? And
Yeah, I mean, it was 70 some odd degrees yesterday, and it's 40 today. So, I mean, yeah.
That sounds like Pennsylvania.
But yeah, so it no gaming for a while. And Cody's game, which is the other Sunday game I play on, that's on hiatus until like 2 Sundays in the future. So just because of Easter, and then other people couldn't make it, and yada yada. So not a lot on my plate. I've been terrorizing other people's players by proxy by lending my terrain and miniatures to my brother for his campaign. So
well, you've been doing your bit for the world of gaming, though. Yeah.
exactly. I've been doing maps and stuff in my own time. So
Yeah. Good evening, Mage. Good evening, Richard. Good evening, Manfred. Nice to see more people. Yes, Manfred, we were just talking about you. Yes. You rolled a 1 on your damage on your gunshot. That was the thing. Yes. You got 80 in your pistol skill, and you rolled 86. Had to use 6 luck to hit him, and then rolled a 1 on your damage, and then got the living shit kicked out of you by 5 black shirts.
yeah.
Let me try and recreate John's surprise when Manfred said it. He was like, yes. So I reach into my pocket and pull out my pistol, try and shoot him.
So I'm not, what?
You nearly jumped out your chair, mate. You nearly jumped out your chair, let's be honest.
Yeah.
It was so unexpected for all of us.
It was. Yeah, you've been so careful up until now, apart from you. Halakar, how's your game going?
Well, I've just been working on that big batch of miniatures that I got this week. I got a whole bunch of them stripped. That was like a 3-part process, and then primed, and I started painting. I'm finishing up the fire giant and the basilisk and an ogre and a couple little ones, and I'll be putting up progressive pictures on the Discord as they are completed. So that's been my activity around Easter and everything else.
No games, just
Nope, not till a week from Saturday will be our next one.
all right.
I've got
Oh,
church
okay.
conferences this weekend, all weekend long. And Manfred, you need a high capacity magazine so you could double tap instead of one shot. What were you thinking?
I believe it was a revolver he has, right?
Oh,
Yeah,
there's your
you
problem.
can fire multiple shots, yes, with the revolver. He just chose to fire one shot, and it just grazed him. I hate to think
What would
how
have
that
happened if he
scenario-
fired more than one, though? Would it not affect his roll or something?
Yes, it would. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You roll at disadvantage.
There was a really cool Civil War revolver that I want to say had an 8-shot cylinder and a 20-gauge shotgun from a separate barrel underneath.
It was the Lamat.
Yes.
It was 32 caliber 8-shot with a 20 gauge underneath. Yes.
Yep.
They're
That's the
really
one.
cool. Yeah. But it was the Lamat.
Wait,
Yeah.
so it has an underbarrel shotgun?
Correct.
It's a 20 gauge, so it's
Right,
not,
okay.
it's not a huge shotgun, but
That's what the big bad guy in Westworld uses.
It was designed as a cavalry revolver. Hence the 20 gauge shotgun underneath, and then you still had 8 rounds of 32 caliber, which really wasn't that powerful, but still had 8 rounds, and you had a 20 gauge. So yeah,
And you didn't have to reload as often on horseback.
correct. You can find
Well,
them in Cabela's, their catalog online. They still sell them like reproductions.
we've got them on. We've got Daniel on his favorite topic here.
Yeah, I'll shut up now because I'll shut up.
Daniel, I know you played games with us on Saturday, didn't you? Saturday afternoon.
Yes.
Oh no, we didn't play Saturday afternoon, did we? We Saturday evening you played because we
Yeah.
couldn't. We didn't. None of our DMs were available Saturday afternoon. I was at work. The two were out, so we just chatted online. But yeah, we played Saturday night, didn't we?
Yeah, we had we bullshitted in the morning and played in the evening.
Yes.
Yeah, it was just a later session, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And none of you died. You did all right.
And
I got paralyzed. That wasn't fun.
Oh, two of your hirelings died.
Oh yeah, Nut and Kearney, right?
Yes, Nut and Kearney.
And then Slan's the one that actually survived.
Kill the Irish twin. And I was working on something to run Saturday morning, but then I remembered this Saturday is my son's regional air rifle shoot, so I won't be around.
Fair enough. And you are joined by a putty tat.
Yep, that would be Church.
Hello.
He's my pain in the ass.
Right. Is that the cat that your dog is scared of?
Yes, it is.
Correct, yes. Well, this cat's a real asshole, actually. He really is.
My gaming has been running a game for some of these reprobates on Saturday night. That was OSE. That was a lot of fun. And Tuesday night's Call of Cthulhu, which was a surprising game and also a lot of fun. And they're in Venice now. And there's a love affair going on. And a not love affair. An obsession. But they haven't really got into the horror of Venice yet. We've yet to get there, but it'll be good when it arrives. So we do have a topic for tonight, but before we have come on to the topic, my Friday night stream this week, I don't intend to run the Choose Your Own Adventure books that I've been running recently. I would like to run a game of werewolf / mafia, whatever you want to call it. Hello, Bear.
Hello, Bear.
And
Hello.
Oh, there you're deep. There you're very deep.
Oh no.
But I'm hoping to run that on Friday night, beginning at 9:30. In order for it to work, I need a minimum of 7 players, preferably 8, maybe even 9. I currently have 5. So if anybody wants to join in and play a live streamed game of Mafia / werewolf, sort of Among Us type thing,
/ Town of Salem,
that sort of thing, just let me know in the Discord. We've got a few players signed up already, so hopefully that will go ahead. There, any gaming since we last spoke? No. You've been a busy bear.
Very busy bear. Very, very busy bear. Yeah, that's what I've been. So yeah, sadly no gaming.
Sorry for derailing your chat the other day, Bear.
How did you derail my chat?
Oh, it was just, remember you said right at the end of the stream that, the chat's gone all funky. I'm like, yeah, that's probably my fault.
It always goes that way though. That's the way chats work. People behave as long as possible, and then eventually their personalities come out, and their personalities tend to trend towards chaos because they're humans.
Yes. Yep. Hello, Gene. Hello, you're wrong. Welcome to tonight's stream. Right, we do have a topic to go into.
Ooh, there's a topic.
There is a topic, and this is I mean, Zach just comes up with all the ideas for topics. He's very good like that. Very, very inspirational when it comes to topics. And he's put 2 here: player psychology and player engagement. And I wanted to combine the 2 because I think they go together. Because a player's mindset affects how you try to engage them, or whether they'll fit your group, whether they'll fit your style in which you choose to engage them. The descriptions here: player psychology is understanding player motivations and engagement, and player engagement is techniques to keep the players invested and excited in long-term campaigns. I'm going to say not just long-term campaigns, because even if you're playing a 3 or 4 hour session, you've got to really keep the player interest going throughout that session, and often more so because short sessions, they expect a faster pace and a faster resolution. If you sign up for a campaign, often you are expecting things to be a little more slow, a little, maybe even plod a little at times, because campaigns don't always rush headlong all the way through at breakneck speed all the time. But a one shot, you tend to expect it to be more of a breakneck speed session. But we're going to start with Saxius as are your topics. Let's start with understanding player motivations and engagement.
Yeah.
Are there any specific questions you ask of your players before you start regarding this?
Well, so when it comes to the player motivation and engagement, that is more of a long-term observation that I end up doing, because rather than when I sit down and I talk to players who are joining my game, many of them are, answering. They'll answer honestly. They'll answer about like, this is what I would like to do and so on. But the moment they start, sitting in a group interacting with each other, you find that the edges will rub off and they will start, either gelling or not gelling. And then from there, I will then look at patterns, behaviors. I will put out, situations to sort of see, who reacts, who doesn't react, and then that way, like basically like a sponge, I just sit and throw out things to just casually observe and see what kind of engagement comes back from it, so that I can use that as a form like database for me, so I can establish profiles for the players, so I know what I can do to each player to basically give them a jolt, and I'll get a certain reaction, and what I can then do to jingle this, again, like I refer to it as, jingle the keys, but in a specific way, so that I know which players I might be able to tag in for a quest line or that might be interested in things. So when it comes to the player motivations, it's very much an observation of what is it that gets the players excited. Is it material? Is it quest line? Is it backgrounds? These sort of things. Around the game, I might be asking questions like, okay, well, what did you really enjoy about this? Did you have a favorite moment? This really enjoyed. You really like this? Awesome. Just sort of like the nonchalant questions that you would expect a DM to ask, just to sort of like see, like, am I doing it right? Are we on the right track? For me, I try to sort of do it to sort of like get on, like look under the bonnet. How does the engine work and what motivates the group?
Okay. I did forget one thing I want to do before I should have asked everybody before I asked you that, was if you're a player in a game, what engages you?
Right. The things that engage me are not the things that engage everyone. I am very much a sucker for the details, the nitty-gritty, the rules, I will be very excited if you were to give me a card and a budget, and you told me you now have to spend 500 gold pieces, and horse and cart is included. Go and have fun. Like, I will pour through the books to find out how I can maximize on the utility of something like that. Like, I'm very much like, I count the beans, I measure the pounds and the ounces. Like, all this like bookkeeping stuff is exciting to me, because that's what really gets me going. I would love to play a wizard where like I have to go through and actually acquire the material components for the spells, because that strikes me as being a very different kind of game. So that's what I'm like as a player. Like, but that's I know that my taste is hard to translate for many.
Well, I was going to go to Elfbait next, but Elfbait, your camera went off. It panicked me for a moment. Now, I'm pretty sure you've said before, Elfbait, that you tend to run games because you don't really consider yourself to be much of a player. You're more of a DM, I think.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I have most of my fun. As a player, I very often find myself unintentionally and in my mind, not out loud, second guessing the GM. So,
Right.
or trying to figure out the recipe. Yeah, like, yeah. For me, I don't know. I am engaged as a player though by a world that makes sense. For me, a world that conforms to a set of rules or consistency that I am aware of as a player, but also has sort of a basis in common sense. I mean, I was saying the other day to somebody that there are a lot of D&D campaigns that are just all over the place and complete craziness, wackadoo, just anything goes. And I'm like, I have no interest in those because there's no grounding. Even if it's grounded in something oddball, but it's grounded, yeah, that's much better for me than say just complete nonsense. Everybody is anything they want to be. The world is just all over the place and doesn't make sense. That's the key thing for me. If I'm playing in a game, I just really need to be able to look at the world and go, okay, I get it.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I can't say I disagree with that. I was going to say something very, very similar. Halakar, you run games. I don't think you've ever talked about when you've played in games.
I haven't been a player in a game in a long time, but my favorite part is the exploration, finding and learning new things, doing the puzzles and the traps and the tricks. Now in high school, it was all about killing stuff, getting magic, and getting higher level. But then I quit being a teenager, and my focus changed.
Yeah. Of course, yeah. Well, what you like changes over time. Daniel.
For me,
What?
I guess.
Go on, sorry, I interrupted
You guys so far have skimmed over a lot of, and I agree with it all, but for me, I always like character progression as in becoming a leader, gaining a territory, a stronghold, keep.
Goals to aim for.
Gathering followers, stuff like that.
So you give yourself goals to aim for within the game.
Correct. Yeah, like one of the best campaigns that we ran, I had a ranger, and my friend had a fighter, and we acquired this small an area of land and cleared it out and refurbished a small keep for him and like a big wooden cabin for my character, and we set up as a team to control the area. But yeah, I always try to have a goal.
Bear.
Mhm.
You've said before that you don't tend to play in games so much as you run them.
I really don't, but yeah.
But if you were a player, what sort of thing would engage you?
Being involved, the characters mattering, the story being about us, not being about the world around us, but about what we do in that world. Cody's running a game I'm playing in right now, and he did a really good job of engaging our characters right away and making us be part of the story and part of the world and part of the focus. I couldn't give two fucks about dungeon delving. I don't give a rotten's ass egg about treasure. I don't care about killing monsters. I want to have a fun time while I'm there playing a character that's interesting and interacting with the world around me. That's interesting to me. If I want to play strategy games, I'll play strategy games. I don't need to pretend I'm someone else to do that. We can just go play the strategy game, right? And that's where I always sort of break with the OSR mentality, is that I hate dungeons. They disgust me. They make no sense. They're illogical.
But if someone was to send you into a fantasy mock-up of Warwick Castle, for example, would that
What are we doing there? Why are we there?
Oh, if there's a reason to be there, a story reason to be there, and
If
explore
we're there to meet people or do something or, kidnap someone or rescue someone, that's great. But if we're just going into a hole to kill monsters and get treasure, you guys have fun. I'm going to go read a book,
Fair enough.
I role play for the role-playing part.
So I think for me personally, two big things are, one is player agency and the other one is attention to detail. Sort of similar to what Saxius said above with the detail. I love having the extra detail that might not get picked up by some players, but some might. It's better to have it and not use it than to not have it there when it's sort of needed to flesh out the world. And then secondly, the reason I like Call of Cthulhu is because of you have various options to do things in whatever order you want to do them. Like, the player agency is very high. It's railroady in certain parts, but I like the fact that you can choose to go wherever you want and explore whatever you want. And you don't always pick the right thing at the right time, and it's just a matter of it is what it is at that point. But the fact that it gives you a choice.
Have sessions where you go, you occasionally have sessions where you go completely off track and make the DM bullshit the whole time. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I mean, we're not doing that on purpose, but if that's what happens, and so be it. That's part and parcel of the game, isn't it?
Absolutely. For me, it differs between the type of game I'm playing. If I'm playing a fantasy game, I like a lot. I'm pretty close to a combination of Eli and Daniel there, in the sense that I like to have a world that makes sense to me. I like to have it have plenty of logic and a familiarity. I do like familiarity. That logic must be something that I see as logical, and it must sort of fit in the whole setting. But I like the progression. I do like to feel that my character is growing into becoming a hero. I don't like starting out as a hero. I like the journey to become a hero. And I enjoy that as the DM as well, but that's what I enjoy as the player. And I like, I like my actions. I do like my actions mattering to matter, but for me, it's about building the character's reputation and taking on that hero mantle when you've earned it. Only when you've earned it. If I'm playing a Call of Cthulhu game, I love the investigation side of it. I love the puzzles, and I love the role play, the dialogue as well. Banter between characters and NPCs. It helps you sort of get into the feel of the situation. I like the social situations. I've always come across as being quite difficult to please, but I'm actually, as long as it's a genre I'm happy with, I'm quite easy to please. Make it make sense, make it rattle along at a decent pace, and make it engaging, and I'll be there. And I'll enjoy it. Just not sci-fi.
Or sewers.
Sucks to your ass.
And I mean, I don't like the sort of incredible high fantasy of the current worlds that we see in a lot of modern D&D. I don't like the idea. I can't ground myself in the idea that there's magic on every corner and the whole world is a big party that everyone's getting on beautifully, because that's how I feel the Forgotten Realms has become. And no, not for me. I like it to go darker and dirtier than that. So, having all of that we've heard 7 people here, and we've come up with a number of different things that we would like as players. So, if you were a DM to us 7, how would you keep us all happy? Or
I
would
wouldn't.
you?
I wouldn't.
You wouldn't.
No, because there's got to be. Because if I'm looking to please everyone, then from what I've heard here, there's going to be quite clear conflicts. So there's nothing wrong with having, some preamble of like, what is the intent of the campaign? What is it that we are all buying into? And if we're all sitting down and going like, we would love roleplay, okay, then let's make a roleplay heavy game, where we've got goals, orientations, and all of these things. If the idea is that we are meant to be rising from peasants up to nobility with our own little thing, then yes, then that's something that as a group you've got to do, because that's a very long-term goal that you want to go for. But it's we've all basically said what is under our ideal circumstances, but it's very rare, in my opinion, that you are going to get the ideal circumstance. There's going to be certain things that you give and you take. You are in a group.
Absolutely.
Everyone wants something out of it. So for me, it's, session 1, sit down. What do everyone want out of the game? What's the theme? What's the thing you want out of the game? After that, then it would be my job as the DM. I would then sit and just start up, do the whole psychological analysis to sort of, figure out, what does this player like? What is this player like? And then so on. Then I can find quirks for what it is that some people enjoy doing. I mean, hey, I'll use an example, like one of the players that I had many years ago, he had this tendency of that he would always, have, he would always want to have, a female NPC that he would then, have a love interest with. Well, I would use that for various plot events. And there you go, there would be situations that could be used for that. There would be reasons for why there might be something that he would want or that she would need. And that would be something I could use and exploit for the sake of making sure that he would get interested. Or vice versa, I've got other players where they say, well, my character really is driven to get this item. Well, that's good stuff. I'm not going to throw it out in session 1. But I might be dropping hints down the line in several sessions along the way. And then as they pick up on what's going on and see the breadcrumbs, that might suddenly motivate them to go for it. It's all about knowing what the players are going to be like, in character and out of character.
I think the key before a game starts, you've got to have that bit of communication, and the DM and the players have to be honest with each other about what they want. That's where I think most conflicts happen, when there's either no communication or just dishonesty, because not everybody is suitable for every group. Not every DM is suitable for every player. And I will repeat something I've said quite a lot. I consider the DM to be the single most important piece in any group. And the DM has to be having fun. If the DM is not having fun with a particular group, then that group is doomed. That group is doomed from the start. Because the DM has to put in so much more work. And so I think the emphasis here is on the players to be honest to DM about what they want, and the DM to be honest about what he or she wants to provide as a game. And right from the get-go, you need to say, well, this is going to work, or this is not going to work. And that is absolutely key. Absolutely key. I know when we joined Bear's game, you sent out a fair bit of information for people to read, and you stated what you expected from your players in terms of engagement, in terms of reliability, and I think you've got a good group there, and I think we have gelled quite well.
As players, yes. As characters, that's another thing.
Well, characters don't have to gel.
No.
Characters don't have to gel. But most of the time, characters do have to work as a team towards a common goal. You can have short-term goals where there's conflict, but the end game, the ultimate goal, should be a common one. Because conflict is fun. Conflict drives stories. Conflict drives games. And you can get 20 minutes, half hour of good role play out of two characters disagreeing on something. And those sort of things can help make a session, as long as
what was it that Laurel and Lockwald kept doing? What should we do now, Sir De Beer?
Yeah. And talking about, I mean, Zach just mentioned that the love interest. I never play characters with love interests. And what's Bear done? What's Bear gone and done? He's given me an immediate love interest in the game.
I gave you nothing. I introduced an NPC. You turned it into a love interest.
Because I'm a knight and I'm chivalrous.
Don't blame me. I just put the cheese on the table. You're the rat who ate it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. But as a player, I think you've worked out, Bear, that I like those little details, and I'll take a detail and I'll spin it and I'll run with it. Because I like the DM to offer me those little nuggets. So keep offering those nuggets, and I'll bite. I'm very much a reactive player rather than a proactive player. But we all have different play styles.
Well, everything Saxius said literally is why I want to run a game with Saxius or play in the game that Saxius runs, because I think Sax and I have a very compatible style, and I think we would be very satisfying as GMs for the other as a player. I just think that's just reality based on all the conversations we've had at this point in time. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So, how do you approach it when you've got an issue with a player not engaging?
Well, there's a difference between not engaging and not feeling like they're being engaged with, right? First off.
That's fair.
And how they act out that not engaging makes a big difference too. I mean, if they're quietly sitting there, maybe waiting for something that's going to attract their attention more, that's one thing, as opposed to someone that just decides to ruin everybody else's game.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a difference there. Yeah, I mean, you do get passive players, though. You do get players who sit there and wait to be prompted. That happens.
That's usually somebody's girlfriend that is going along just because their boyfriend is playing.
I mean,
I've seen passive players that aren't girlfriends as well, though. Let's be honest.
Okay.
There
are, but that seems to be the majority of them.
So is that Eli?
I just say, or 25% of the people in my 5e game.
Dude,
it just depends on the style of play.
Yeah.
You know, some people just are not confident enough to take point.
Yeah.
My wife is constantly grumbling because she's the one who always has to take point because so many of them will just sit back and wait. She's like, I don't want to always be the one taking point. She's like, I want to be able to sit back sometimes. And then I've got another guy in the group who will absolutely touch the thing that I put in the dungeon. If there's something to touch that should or shouldn't be touched, he will touch the thing.
I've got a similar player.
Characters lose a lot of sanity in Call of Cthulhu. Iman is that player.
I've got a similar player who, when he was in my games, he would often, he would begrudgingly take the leader position because many of the other players would basically go like, well, I don't want to lead, and I don't want to step on people's toes. And then the few times I've been a player, I'd usually be like, all right, this is that direction. I am pushing onward. No one has immediately stepped up to say we're going in a direction. I will loudly declare what direction we're going, because that is now, if no one's saying something, here's what we're doing. Go on, Bear.
I have a friend I've been playing with the guy since high school, my buddy Mike, and he has now gotten to the point in games where he says, I will not be the leader. I will purposely stand with my thumb up my ass and do nothing until you guys make a decision, because he's so tired of them always forcing him into the role of leader, right?
Yeah.
Because the rest of them are scared to do it. But back to your thing about players not engaging. There's two types of things. If it's just someone who's shy and they don't feel into it, well, I'm going to try and drag them into it, bring them out, and get them into the game.
Yeah.
If it's somebody who's shown up for the game and they're just being an ass, at some point I'm going to ask this question, which has been heard at my table many times. Are you here for a reason, or were you just had nothing better to do today? Why are you here if you're not playing? Like, I will literally ask someone that directly to their face, because at this point in time, they're now ruining it for the other players at the table. They're taking up a seat someone who's wanting to be there could be doing. And if they haven't taken advantage of the multiple times I've said, if there's something I can do to make it better for you, let me know. Send me an email, talk to me in private, and I'll try and work that out for you. But they're just sitting there being a detraction, a deterrent, or a bump. Why the fuck are you here?
Yeah.
I think it depends on the impact they're having on the table in general. I mean, yeah. When I got back into the hobby, the first group I ran regularly for, there were a couple of guys in that who were quite passive. And one of the guys simply was, he was new to role-playing games.
Yeah.
He was quite shy. And it fell on me then I had to bring it out of him what he wanted from a game.
Yes.
And slightly bizarrely, he's the one who most engaged with Tomb of Horrors when I ran it for them. And it turned out he loved puzzles. He loved trying to solve puzzles.
Mm-hmm.
And trying to find devious ways of getting around deadly traps and things like that. He liked that sort of creativity. But I gave him a bit of that, and it made him more confident as a player. So then when we started playing Call of Cthulhu, which of course got investigation, he started role-playing a lot more, because he's now, I brought him out of his shell a bit by giving him he's the one who loved, opposite of you, Bear, in terms of, he loved the old school Funhouse adventures. Things like White Plume Mountain and Castle Amber and stuff like that.
Chateau d'Ambreville was going to come out with Zuzi said Funhouse. I'm like, oh, yeah.
He absolutely reveled in that. It suited his sense of humor as well.
Yeah.
But after running through those, when we played some Call of Cthulhu, he was one of the most engaged, because it brought him out of his shell. There's things to solve in Call of Cthulhu, and he enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So that's that. I mean,
As do I.
Yeah. When you've got a new group, one of your main jobs as a DM is to try and extract from the players what they want from the game, and try and work out how to incorporate that sort of thing in your game, and whether it's possible.
Yeah, but I'd also argue that after a bit, I mean, I have turned around to the group and gone like, okay, well, you know what my style is like now. We've had a few sessions. We've gone through a couple of levels. Now, here are some questions from me to consider for the next game. You know, what are the destinations? What are the themes you want to see? You know, these if it's 5 players brand new to role-playing games, you know, getting them used to the system, getting them into the feel, getting them engaged that way, great. But then sort of immerse in, like, listen, I need some homework back. I need some feedback, because if it's just sit, open mouth, feed me, like, that's going to be draining.
Yeah, it is.
It's as you said, find out what it is that takes, find out what it is that they like. You know, out of game is a very good source. Learning that, you know, one of my real life game has a player who loves, you know, feudal Japan, absolutely loves it. He plays a samurai, he loves it. Having a number of things happen where him as a samurai can, you know, sort of shine and do his thing. The player loves that. He eats into it. It's allowed him to sort of like step out of his game, and he's gone down a route of he now wants to rise up and become more of a warlord. Awesome stuff. You know, he's got a sense of direction, but he's still aligning everything with the group, just with the intention.
He's gotten drunk with power. He must be stopped.
Oh yes, and I keep forcing him to drink that. You see, the more he gets into it, the more I can feed upon it. But my point is that he still works.
Let me just respond to Armand. Yes, all of these will be available on YouTube afterwards. They can be viewed back. So don't worry if we're sending you to sleep. Let us be your lullaby tonight and doze off with our dulcet tones in your ears. Where are you, Aman? I'm guessing 5 hours ahead.
He's in India. That's what you said in the Discord.
Right. Right. So yes, about 5-6 hours ahead. Yeah. So yes, get your beauty sleep. Get your beauty sleep. India time. Right.
GG.
We are even we are even more international than we've ever been, are we not? No.
Well, look at that.
I believe so.
Ocean to ocean to ocean.
From India to Australia. So
To Canada, to the Pacific Northwest, coast to coast. It's AM somewhere, sir.
Yes. We've had people in chat from and
feel
Australia,
like
from Sweden, from Jordan. We've got a guy.
I think we've got people 12 hours ahead and 8 hours back, so that's quite a lot.
It's a time traveler show.
and the ironic thing is, one of our members.
All right, John. No one likes a braggart. Calm down. Okay, we get it.
No,
You're internationally popular. We understand, sir.
All right, back on topic.
Thank you,
Psychology.
psychology.
So,
Brown and proud.
all right.
Yeah.
So,
A cha?
for God's sake.
Uh-huh.
So things that we do for the engagement, it's good. We all understand that we need to do things. There's got to be some form of work for bringing players in, especially when it's a game that's first starting up. There is the expectation that at some point the players are going to go, okay, I'm going to put some effort into this. I'm going to try and take a direction. Equally so, being able to sort of figure out, what the direction the group is going, and having maybe the healthy questions of maybe asking out the questions to the group is like, okay, well, what's the plan here? Have you discussed that amongst yourself and get the group to sort of discuss and maybe even interject and go, what, I've heard from Ben and Tom over there quite often, but like let's just take a moment. Like I want to pitch in. Does Julie and I don't know Sven have any comments on this? Like, what are you thinking? Oh, that's neat. No, but Sven, isn't your character aligned with the faction of the Centaurian? Aren't you wanting to have something in there? It's like, again, asking these questions where the players go, oh, yeah, I do have this. Well, what does the Centaurian want out of this? It's like, well, they're a criminal organization, but you're able to profit if this profits. What does that sound like to you? And it's like,
I think that links up a bit with Aman's point here. Not only a problem with passive players, but the issue comes when other players don't bring them in, and it falls on you as a DM to do that. And if you as a DM, you're trying to provide situations where the players interact, which naturally, hopefully, brings in everybody and gives everyone a chance to contribute.
Yeah, but you got to know what your players are like at this point.
Yeah.
I mean, what the examples I've given is an example of what I'm going to be like as a player, because I will sit and I'll be like, all right, hi, nice to meet you, Eli, and let me look at that character sheet, because I want to know what everyone is playing, what the backgrounds of everyone, because I sit like a micromanaging person and I need to know these things. Because then I can start asking out of character questions of like, what about this? What about that? Do we know about these things? Because I'm very goal focused, got to achieve things step by steps.
Well, they might have let Sven in the game. Sven's a twat.
We needed bodies, Bear.
Okay, fair.
But that's an example of it. I have a player when I had from my real life group who is like that, where she will not necessarily sit and know what everyone else does, but she will read everything I give out, and then she will sit in any character start going through like, okay, well, I have read this book, this means this means that, and here is a too long didn't read because none of you read the homework. And then I enjoy the session where the players are then sitting and asking questions. They'll look to me and I go, look at her, she's done the homework. You've now got to engage here, and now the group has to learn, discuss, interact. This means that you have to identify these players. You have to identify the mentalities of these weirdos.
Some of the best sessions I can remember are ones where we've got a situation and the players are discussing and interacting, whatever. And I, as DM, can just sit back and put my feet up for 20 minutes and just listen to what they're doing. I thoroughly enjoy that. That's what I want to see. I want to see my players engaging and discussing and coming up with plans, but I want to see everybody having an input.
I agree.
Maybe I'm in a different situation than most of you, but I've never played with total strangers. I mean, the farthest degree of separation I have ever gamed with or run a game for is a friend of a friend. You know, I have never just popped in at the local hobby shop and said, "Hey, I'm going to play or I'm going to run a game," or something like that. So I guess in most cases, I already have an idea of what the player is like. Now, they may run a character that's totally opposite of them, but I know what the player themselves is like before we even get at a table. Like my group right now, everybody in that group has been gaming for 20 years or more, but they have never been at the table together. I mean, some of us went to high school together, but we were in different gaming groups even back in high school. So it's the first time they're all at the table, but they know the game. They want to be there, so they've got their own self-motivation. And a lot of them, I have seen how in real life they have reacted to different situations. So I know what kind of things are going to probably be enjoyable for them in the game. So I guess in a way that makes it kind of easy.
One thing to remember is that no matter how much the players try, there will always be some aspect of that player in their character. It might be heavily a heavy caricature of it or extremely exaggerated, but there's always going to be some aspect of that player in the character. So if you want to engage the player and the character, it's often the same sort of thing.
Well, solving problems, coming up with a solution to a problem is a major motivation and can be engaging. You know, they've babies that are born blind and have never seen a human being smile in their life, if they are able to solve some type of problem, will smile. It's just a natural reaction our body has when we complete something that we may have been doubtful we could even complete. So for me, it's finding what the challenge is for each of those players. Like in my game, I've got one guy that went to college for chemistry. So when I threw in the brine pool and told when they separated it out, these are some of the different chemicals they found, oh, his eyes lit up. He was just in his mind. It's like, oh, yeah, I know from real life that this one extract can make ultra clear glass because it eliminates bubbles in it. So he's got in his mind going how he can turn that into something in the game. You know, I've got another guy, my psychotic magic user was a tank commander in an M1 Abrams tank for 20 years, and he retired out of the Army. So he has a little different viewpoint on what he finds as being a fun problem to solve. So that's why he likes to burn everything he meets with his magic user. But, you know, just by knowing my players and what it is they like to do or like to fix or like to figure out in the real world, if I can throw a corollary to that in the game, I mean, their eyes light up, their ears prick up, and they are all in.
Yeah. But and then, I mean, I'll use my second edition game. You know, the moment we found out, you know, there were things that each player wanted out of it. I went down the route over many sessions. You know, bit by bit, allowing each player to feel that they were getting that specific thing, which motivated them to put in some role play efforts. I mean, one player, he has no interest in bookkeeping. He owns a mansion. He has got lands, you know, several farm fields, families to look after. He does no bookkeeping. Why? He hates it. The only thing that matters to him is what's on his character sheet. I threw in an NPC that is literally just a steward. He takes care of all the day-to-day problems and approaches him when there's something interesting. The player loves that. he feels that he is now a landowner, but he's got someone overseeing the daily stuff. The important things comes to him, and he can go off and be a wizard in the corner of the mansion.
So he's basically got his own PA.
Exactly.
I believe the term is major domo, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna,
Gentlemen, I hate
Yep.
to do this, but I got to bounce out.
Have a good
Right.
night, sir.
Sorry to say, I just came
No,
in
no
for a
worries,
few
mate.
minutes. But,
do you want to shield your stream later because you had a big guest last week, and a very
Yeah.
interesting chat with Tim Kask last week.
Yes, we did. Yeah.
You've got a big guest tonight as well. So
Yes, my left toe is going to be the guest tonight, and my left toe has a lot of opinions on things. No, we're going to have Larry Elmore on tonight, so come on by if you want to ask Mr. Elmore some questions. 8 o'clock, my channel. Otherwise, though, I do have to go, guys. I'm so sorry.
that's all good.
Shit happens.
Yeah.
Don, see you soon. Iman, see you soon. Sax, always a pleasure.
Yes.
Daniel, stay awake. Don't fall asleep on camera. Come on. Eli, be good. And Halakar, you know what? Stop copying me. Get a new haircut. Jesus, man. Jesus.
I don't have a lot of choice at this point.
I know, me neither. Hey, welcome to the club. Fuck. All
Although
right.
a couple years ago, me and my friends dressed up as Kiss for Halloween, and I had a beyond shoulder length wig. That was something.
I don't know what to make of that, so I'm just going to say peace, love, and geeking bounce. Bye.
Right. Talk amongst yourselves. Well, I'm just going to try and get. I have put some new emojis in the chat.
Oh, do we finally get to use them?
You should be able to.
I think actually only members can.
Oh,
Here we are. Here we are. I'm throwing them in there into the chat so we can see all of them. There
Yes,
we
I
go.
want to see these all.
You can't see them from the StreamYard. You have to be in YouTube to.
Oh, okay. Let me switch that.
Yes.
So that is that. But yeah, we've got Daniel at the height of a quick nap. Of course, we've got Imam. When everything was freezing out, and we've got our beloved standard picture of John when he is going. Grrr.
I'm going to add more. I have a picture of Eli. Eli, you doing your sort of mad Viking-y face.
Should it not be Saxius doing that one?
Saxius doesn't really do a mad Viking-y face.
I don't really do faces.
He's the Great Dane, though.
I am, but you don't catch me giving you the opportunity to snip any of my pictures.
Cheers, Bet. Cheers, Bet.
Now, Saxius, I actually have one player that your two personalities would mesh so well. He's a truck driver in real life. So anything encumbrance related, he is the master. He can pack their theoretical cart with everything they find, get it to fit, get it to fall within limits. He's Green Man when it comes to
Sounds
that.
like he'd be really good at Tetris.
I don't know. I bet he is.
And you got to be good at something like that when you're a truck driver, because you've got limited space, and the operators back in the base, they're gonna be like, no, like there's enough cube in there, like there is still air in that truck, fit it.
Yep, exactly.
Like, I'm glad I don't work on that aspect of it, because I'd probably drive some of our drivers up the wall. Because I know there's another team who drive our warehouse up the wall, because they're going like, oh, we should be able to fit all of this. And we've got more than once the team from the warehouse coming in going, what are you doing? How am I meant to fit this on this? How is this meant to work? And I was like, don't know.
Your trailer has this many cubic feet. You've got this many cubic feet of cabinets. They should fit. You figure it out.
Exactly. So it's just like, okay, well, something's going to break now. Either way, that's me being derailed. I blame you, Halakar. That is, you know my weakness for logistics. Yeah, I know. I forget down there, that corner.
So more techniques for getting players to engage.
Is Dan still with us? Sorry.
Dan, have you?
Okay, just checking.
No, I'm playing a game on my phone.
Yes. So this is a player not engaging with the stream.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so that's one thing at the table. All the electronics get put away as soon as you get there. That helps with engagement.
It does, yes, yeah. I like
I-
to
You
try
have to know
and
your group, though. I mean, honestly, with the electronics at the table, one of my groups was much more engaged when they had the electronics to fiddle with, just because of their tendencies. If they
Yeah,
were
ADHD and stuff like that.
idle, yeah, they're all ADHD and stuff like that. So left with idle hands, they just wander off. If they weren't playing with their phone, they were building dice towers. One of them actually put together an entire dice jail out of
Wow.
sticks while we were sitting there at the table with glue and everything, because it's also my hobby workshop for my miniatures game. So they're always going to be doing something other than what they do, decorating the outside of their character sheet, drawing up their character, illustrating the encounter, whatever. They're doing something. So, I mean, it depends on your group. I mean,
it does. I mean, I do that sort. I build little towers of dice, stack my dice, and
my main group. We played every Sunday night and also every major holiday, no matter what it was, because nobody wanted to be with their family. We'd rather hang out together, and we would take turns. We would decide on whatever dish we were going to make for that day. And if your character wasn't up doing something, you would go out to the kitchen and keep track of the food. We would pick a meal, and everybody took turns making the food. Like, okay, I got 2-3 minutes before I'm up again, so I'll go start on the mashed potatoes.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll go turn the ham over, something like that.
We had to implement organized feeding times with one group I was in, because my buddy whose house we played at, his wife has anxiety and OCD and several other things, so she has to be the perfect hostess whenever people are there.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's constantly getting, I got to check the temperature on this. I got to check this and that. And it's like, no, Nikki, we did this for 20 years with nothing but nacho cheese Doritos and Mountain Dew.
Yeah.
It's heated is going to be a godsend. But I mean, we had to all but rope her in her chair. It's like, look, we're all going to get up and get something to eat at this time, and then at this time, and then at this time. Otherwise, I have to repeat what I'm explaining to the players 5 different times, because each one of them's up doing something.
That we had a Taco Bell 2 blocks away.
Oh, that's so distracting.
I'm glad we didn't. I'm glad we played on Sundays and nobody saw each other on Mondays. Halfway through the session, one of us would make a run down and buy like 40 tacos, and I'm sure we'd be really pissed off the crew, because you walk in, okay, I need 40 soft tacos to go. So yeah,
I mean, I think all this sort of depends on the length of the session. If you're thinking about having cooked food in the middle of the session, you're probably going to be playing for 5 or 6 hours.
Yeah, we would start.
Just the timing of the session. Like, our games weren't that long back when we were playing in person, but it was always at my house, so we would do it potluck style. My wife and I would provide the main, and then everybody would bring sides and drinks, because we were getting started right around dinner time. So it was either wait for everybody to have dinner and come over, or come over, dish up dinner, and we'll eat and play at the same time.
That's the way it works with this couple. We'd start playing about 3, and we'd stop at about 2 in the morning. So we would have late lunch, dinner, snack, another snack, because everybody's starting to doze off.
Yeah.
Like me.
Do you still play with those people, Eli? The ones who are a bit fidgety?
What was that?
Do you still play with the group who's a bit fidgety?
A good chunk of them still, but we're virtual, which makes it even.
Oh, okay. Because I was going to say, if it's a
running my
face-to-face thing, a
all
good thing.
group, the super fidgety group. It was when it was
Hmm.
the main players were my youngest, and then their 2 high school friends, and then boyfriends who were also wanting to play, and then the kid
Okay.
down the street who was also wanting to play. And at one point it was 10 teenagers.
Oh, bloody hell. Okay.
Almost
Yeah.
all of
Because a
them.
good thing for people who are really fidgety, that's non-intrusive and also non-distracting, is just
I
fiddling
got
with
stuck
blue tack.
real quick.
A piece of blue tack, yes.
Yeah, it works
You should
wonders.
mold it. Yes. Yeah. Back to more general techniques. I mean, I like the idea of shifting a spotlight around and dropping a spotlight on somebody by making something happen to a character, or somebody talks to a specific character. What's that?
My character yesterday in our Call of Cthulhu session, you made extra sure to focus that my character's bollocks were hurting.
Yeah.
And then I
But
took that and I ran with it.
Well, I had to, because in the session, this is all about the details. Going back to details in the session. In the previous session, you had got yourselves involved in a fight,
Yes.
and someone pulled a gun at you, and you didn't back down, and he fired, and you made a successful dodge check. Now, in Call of Cthulhu, if you're using a dodge check to avoid a bullet, it pretty much means you forfeit your next round, because you pretty much throw yourself to the floor. So you threw yourself to the floor. If you fired a gun at somebody and they are now on the floor in front of you, and they're a bloke and you're a bloke, what is a typical thing to do next?
Empty the magazine.
Stamp on
Nag
their
dump,
nuts.
yep.
Stamp. Yeah, stamp on their nuts. So
Yeah, either
what did
curb
you do?
stomp or ball stomp. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, you were there, and I said, okay, he's going to try and hoof you in the nuts, and I rolled 0-1, which is a critical success at Call of Cthulhu.
Yes.
Which means your character not just has sore balls, your character has a broken pelvis.
Yeah.
And is now that is you've got a major wound on your character from being hoofed in the nuts.
So whilst my character was then major wounded and unconscious, obviously the spotlight was on all the other players until the spotlight got shifted back to me when I finally woke up again.
Yeah. And they'd called in a doctor
that's why I was
to look at
mentioning it.
They'd called in a doctor to look at your injury.
Yes.
And the doctor had used something cold to reduce the swelling. So when your character woke up, you didn't know where you were. Your nuts hurt, and your nuts were extremely cold as well. And there was a strange doctor,
and there was a
kneeling
big
over you.
brick shithouse bloke next to them.
Yes, yeah. So, but it's having this sort of logic, these sort of details, and I think it makes a scene work more when you've got that sort of the details there and the flow, and it feels organic. So
yes, but also I was talking about how the spotlight shifted between me and the other players and back to me.
I intentionally put the spotlight on you because you had been out of it for a while. You've been unconscious.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. Yeah,
and certainly in that group, Joker is quiet because he's quite new to role-playing games, and he's new to the whole Call of Cthulhu thing as well. And we had noticed that quite often in the sessions, he would sit back and just listen for a lot of it. So I've made last 2 sessions, I've made a point of having the NPCs engage with his character and get him to react. And I'm trying to make him more comfortable with the idea of role playing and getting.
Yeah, it's like forcing him without forcing him, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Yeah.
But doing it sort of not doing it harshly, but just having the NPCs engage, which means he has to. But it also brings him out of his shell a little.
Yeah, in a way that feels natural and not forced. Exactly. Obviously, yeah,
exactly. So
I think you're doing a really good job because he has been engaging more, and it's really good to see. Because without his engagement, we could all be dead right now.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that plagues my group, as far as engagement and motivation, all that is, all my players are super polite, and nobody wants, especially considering we're playing online, they don't want to talk over one another. They don't want to steal they don't want to hog the spotlight. And so a lot of them, I've had this confirmed through conversations, they're holding back because they feel like they've already taken up too much of the spotlight, or they don't want to always be the one doing the thing. They don't, they want to give other people a chance. And when you have an entire party of 5 to 6 people who are all waiting politely for the other person to do something, nothing gets done. And it seems like a lack of engagement and motivation. It's mostly a motivation issue because they're all motivated. They're just stuck in this. Maybe it's a Washington thing. There's this thing in Washington, 4-way stops, where we just kind of sit there and go, no, you go. You go. No, go ahead. No, after you.
It's like the UK with roundabouts.
No, that is not my experience.
Well, yes, this did come up last night. You Americans, when somebody says "built like a brick shithouse," what comes into mind?
A really hot, curvy blonde girl from the South.
Or a big, stocky, offensive lineman.
That's almost as far opposite as you can get.
Well,
very practical.
See, there's a difference. Built like a brick house is, that was a Commodore song, but that's an attractive woman. A brick shit house is a big burly country boy.
That's it.
Well, we only have the one term over here, which is basically built like a brick shit house, and it basically means someone who's it looks like a bouncer, really, a doorman type.
Yeah,
as I say, offensive lineman, rugby player,
usually 6 foot, 200 pounds minimum.
Yeah.
Well, that's qualify then.
Yeah, I guess you would. Yeah, if you stand up and just give yourself a bit broader.
Unfortunately, all the girth is around the middle.
Just get some belts and just tie it up a little bit so it
a good tight pair of pants. You can move all that up.
It's amazing how far in life you can get from just having really broad shoulders and a heavy build. So
one thing that I do when it comes. Well, one thing that I do. No,
height to go with it.
God damn it, John. One thing that I do is that I pair up the players. So when they are going out doing things, I often let's say that they're out there having to acquire things for their next adventure, or they're having to gather information. Having a way to split the party is an excellent way, because often what they do is they have to pick partners, go out and do something. That means that I can then do a focus period where I do something with one, go back and do something with another. But it also allows me to have situations of, let's say, someone's going to have to go and intimidate it. One person's going to be the bad cop, but the NPC might turn to the other player and be like, no, can you help me? And then again put them in a situation, because one person is clearly being rather aggressive. They'll try and look for an out. And again, that gives me an easy way to sort of, turn to the other character. And then if they go like, no, I support him, I was like, okay, well, how do you go about this? Like, do you put your arms up? How do you go about this? So that way I, again, pose the questions, to the player for like how it is that they get engaged, and sort of like offer them the window to come in and do things. So that's another way that I do it, because then it also means that the players are able to then sort of sit between each other, and if one person is more sort of like, okay, well, here's how we're going to do things, set out a plan, that can initiate conversation. And if the other person is shy, it's like, okay, I don't, they just let the other person run with it, and then that's a signal for me. It's like, okay, this person's going to be leading this, but I'm going to have other key moments like slip around them, because if the player's like, no, I see this, no, I see that, it's like, no, you said you saw this thing's happening over here. You're busy. Quiet now. This I'm dealing with this now. So that way, they've got something going on, but I can still basically get around and allow someone else to make a contribution for something. Because being quiet in the background, I was like, you might be picking up on a few things, like there is, the carpet on the floor is a little bit ajar. You're picking up on this thing. You're noticing that there's, someone's missing in the family pictures.
There was one session I ran of Call of Cthulhu where the players themselves split up. And two of the characters went to get an ailment treated at the hospital, while the other two went to investigate a dilapidated house. And from that moment, I knew what would happen. There was something very specific in that adventure. And I let the players who went to the hospital role play out for about 15, 20 minutes, them going to the hospital, asking to have something looked into, and then agreeing to an emergency operation. And then I went to the other two. And I stayed with the other two. And stayed with the other two. And then stayed with the other two. And kept with the other two. And I guessed that the two players who were back at the hospital, tension would be building now. A horror game, you want to build tension. After about an hour of just the two who'd gone exploring, your phone rings. Oh, I answer it. Hello. I've got this number as a contact, as a contact for such and such. Can't remember the name of the characters. Yes. I don't know quite how to put this, but please sit down. And Omanal, who was one of the characters who'd gone to hospital, he said at that moment he realized his character was dead. And it was just that leaving, there was no spotlight shift. And I intentionally left that and dragged it. And then it was someone from the hospital on the phone, basically to say that they had both died. But that actually helped with the engagement of the session. I know it's odd, but it's because it was the type of game that we were playing.
I think it's the same type of engagement that psychological horror films are really good at.
Yeah.
Like, it keeps you on the edge of your seat waiting for the next bit.
That it wasn't coming.
Yeah.
Because
now, see, that's what I want. If I'm a player in a horror game, I want that little bit of unease and discomfort and
yeah.
all the
That's
stuff
why I love Call of Cthulhu. The whole thing is just unease. What's that? You're feeling comfortable, right? Go down that street, something's going to happen. Walk into the building, something's going to happen. Turn around, something happens. Breathe, something happens.
I mean, the type of communication you've got to have with the players before a session, and to get their motivations, whatever. I think it's more with a horror game than with a traditional fantasy game, because you're going to be delving into aspects that are not seen as being particularly wholesome, savory.
I'll agree with you on that to an extent on that, but I think honestly it's just about even, because regardless of in horror, you're having to. The motivation for the players is they have to accept that they're going to go do and engage in horrible things or deal with horrible things. But at the same time, you have to get a lot of buy-in from fantasy gamers too, because ultimately you're asking them to do things in a lot of cases that make absolutely no sense for their character to do, or for a regular character. You know that whole Bilbo has to leave the Shire kind of a mentality that I always talk about. That a lot of players, bad players in my opinion, are the ones that are going to sit there. Well, why would my character do that? Because you're playing a fantasy adventure game. And that's why. And when you're doing a horror game, yes, you have to go into the dark basement, even though in real life, there's no way I'm going into my basement with strange noises coming down there if the light switch won't go on.
Oh, quite, yeah. How many times?
Lock it and wait till daylight.
My wife watches loads of horror films, and the amount of times I'll walk through the room and she's watching films, and she's there going, "No, don't do that, don't do that." But because it's a horror film, the characters are doing that. They are.
That there's also a certain amount to be said for people do stupid stuff when they're under pressure and they don't think about it, and also things don't always work well when you're in a scary situation. I know this from firsthand experience when I've had my own weird, creepy thing happen to me in my own life. My friend was sitting there trying to start his car, and it's a car that starts every time. He kept it tuned, one key turn, car starts. We're in the middle of freaking out in the middle of the night. He can't get that thing to start. Why? Because he's fumbling all the maneuvers it's taking to get his manual transmission car to start because he's terrified.
Yeah.
So there's a lot to be said for that. But I mean, as far as player motivations, you're right. I mean, you do have to like talk to people up front and like get them really to buy in. But I think buy-in's important regardless of what you're playing. Especially considering there's always that I don't want my character to die mentality in any kind of ongoing game.
I mean, with Call of Cthulhu, you have to accept your character is an investigator.
Yeah, but there are some, but that's the power of the buy-in. You know, Call of Cthulhu, D&D. There's a buy-in that you do. You know, Call of Cthulhu, you're going to be out and you're going to investigate the things that we all go. You know what? No, I'm going to go home. I'm going to, love my wife, and I'm never going to go back to this to the city called Arkham ever again. You know what? That place can go to hell. Whereas with D&D, look at the crazy things you do as an adventurer. You go out into the middle of wilderness where there are bears, where there are orcs, where there are all these other things that are just
when most medieval peasants are like, I heard a wolf, I'm not going outside tonight.
Exactly. Like, you actually look at what it was like. It's just like, my lords, we need all the hunters. Then wolves be at it again. It's like, we're gonna go wolf hunting now. And now you throw in all the things that follows. It's
science fiction games are the same way too. I mean, if you're doing any kind of exploration game, you have to commit to the bit.
You have to engage with the danger, don't you?
Yeah,
exactly.
No, we don't have an episode of Star Trek if they don't bother to beam down. You're like, sir, we have a strange, mysterious communication coming from blah blah blah. Yeah. All right, mark it on the charts and have a survey team come in and check it out. We'll keep going.
Roll end credits.
Or if you're having to investigate the unknown, what's it called, spaceship, and it's like, oh, we're just gonna go on here, and we're not gonna think about
Take it with a buoy, call the Coast Guard. Bye.
Or if you. Like, we're going to open this door. We're not going to check if it's depressurized or anything like that. We don't think about these things.
It goes on and on. You're playing like Cyberpunk, for example, and like dude comes up, I got a job for you, and you're like, this guy's sketch as fuck, and he's like, I'm going to pay you 5,000 euro creds if you go do this, and you're like, why would I do that? 5,000 euro creds. I don't need 5,000 euro creds. Yeah, sure you do.
Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get out the real game here. It is accountants and lawyers. Now get out your calculators, everyone, and your pencils and erasers.
Now I'm going to start singing Lawyers, Guns, and Money.
Basically, every RPG starts, motivation and engagement really starts with buy-in if you get down to it. And setting those expectations up front, I think, is what you're really getting at there. And just making sure that people know what game they're getting into. And I was listening to something recently, and they were talking about how don't be vague with your setup too. A lot of people are like, it's a horror game. Well, that means jack shit, because 10 different people are going to have 10 different definitions of horror. Mm-hmm. It's a fantasy game. All right. What kind of fantasy? Be very specific about what kind of, not down to the absolute detail, but like, in your themes and your concepts. Like, this is going to be a highly visceral body horror extravaganza. Okay.
I mean, take the 5e game that you were in with me, Eli. We, as a team, we sat down and basically went like, okay, well, what do we want out of the game? And we all sat down and basically went, these are the themes that we want. This is the buy-in that we all have. We all want survival. We all want to be on the frontier. We have got no help. Let's go out and do this.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're not doing a collaborative setup, if you're just a DM and you're pitching a game that you want to run, I think you're doing yourself a ton of favors by being very specific.
Yeah.
Because the more vague you are, the less engaged and motivated your players are going to be, because there's always going to be a question as, how am I supposed to be acting here? What am I supposed to be going for that? Or, where's what the whole, actor saying, what's my motivation? Thing, and so if your players are, if you say it's mystery, it's fine. They're going to expect, they know that it's a mystery. But if you're like I said, if you're saying it's horror, that's just too broad of a category. It's fantasy. It's too broad of a category. What kind of action?
My new character in Call of Cthulhu. Sorry, my new character in Call of Cthulhu has a completely different motivation for the investigation than my first character. So me as a player, like, my motivation's the same. I love Call of Cthulhu. I just want to play it. But as a character, my first character is obviously involved with everyone at the beginning and had attachments to them and such. But with my new character, I had to think up an in-world reason why he would want to follow through with the investigation. So I came up with, they went to university together when they were younger, then the war happened, then they split apart. They've not seen each other since, but they keep in touch through letters. And then when my new character found out that my old character died, that was his motivation for then going through the investigation.
One of the real cool things I think that Call of Cthulhu does, if you look on the character sheet, it has like previous experience with the mythos, and you're actually, a lot of characters are supposed to even start with that. The idea is that you're supposed to maybe scribble something down there, even if it's vague. Like in the game that we were running, that I ran for Call of Cthulhu, all the players had something in their background that got them kind of hooked into looking further into the horror. One guy was a newspaper reporter who started following the weirder stories in town, and that got him kicked off the legit paper. So now he's just printing his own little news rag out of a basement. And his brother had disappeared under mysterious circumstances during World War One. My wife's character, who was an army nurse, she was basically a nurse during World War One, working with them, saw a man get dismembered by nothing, laying on a table. Like she was working on this guy on the table, and he just like started getting ripped to shreds in front of her. Was her encounter? They all had these things. One of the guys who was in there, he was a drunk doctor, and he was drunk because he literally he left a room with a patient in the room, locked in there before his own good, came back, and the patient was just gone. He's like not in the room anymore. He's like, and he was just never right. So they all wrote in their own motivations. I think if you're making a D&D character, for example, fantasy character, you need to put that in your character. Even if it's a really basic thing, like I've mentioned before, like I'm against doing any more tragic backstories for my characters, right? But they still have motivations. The one that I was running in Saxius's game, he was a mercenary who got tired of living and dying on somebody else's dime and wanted to go make his fortunes for himself. That's why he was out there. He was tired of putting his life at risk for the king's coin. And he was just like, I'm going to go make my own money. He's still going to put himself at risk. He's still doing the same stuff, but now it's on his terms for him.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Yeah.
But it was motivation, but it was enough motivation to go adventuring.
I mean, I think I say it depends on the game you're playing. I mean, going out finding treasure, okay, it's been done to death, but it is a basic motivation for so many D&D games. You're going to play a character who wants to go out and find treasure because that's what they want to do. You can add more to it, obviously, but
my wife.
When I first started playing, we were coming from the background of reading a whole bunch of Conan books and things like that, and it was all about finding some treasure that was lost or hidden somewhere, probably guarded by some kind of demon or magic user. And you were going to fight progressively bigger things to get more and more money that you were going to somehow lose before you got it back to wherever it was you were going. So, I mean, that's all we want to do is like, oh, what's the next thing we can fight to try to win what it has? I mean, we had no world we played in. Every weekend we we showed up and okay, you were at the gates of this new dungeon because
that's how all those books started. You never really got like tons of lead in. You just like Conan is dying on a glacier somewhere. Here's the
at that age, that was what we wanted.
Yeah. My wife's character, she's not a bard or anything, but her character's motivation is getting out and learning stories.
Yeah.
My very first Call of Cthulhu.
She wants to learn all the stories. She wants to live the things that she's been hearing all these adventurers talk about when they come into the inn. So
my very first Call of Cthulhu character was a history professor at a college. I picked Egyptian and Mayan for his two languages, and what he was trying to see if there was a correlation in the historical development of when pyramids began being constructed, similarities, differences, blah, 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 blah. So the investigation we were going through started out with a book in Egyptian that someone had found, someone got somewhere, and he could actually translate part of it. So his motivation was to learn all he could about where this came from, what relevant historical whatever he could apply to his life's goal. Me as a player, I wanted him to touch and read everything to go crazy because I wanted to play an insane character.
Yes. I mean, Andy sums it up really nicely with this comment. The first thing for the player should be, we want to play the game.
Yeah, hopefully I reiterated that point as well.
Yeah. That should be the first bit of motivation. If you don't want to play the game, why the bloody hell are you sat at the table? As that Bear said that earlier on, and that is a fair statement. That is a fair statement. You are there to play the game, so play the game, and play it in the spirit to which it's intended.
As in playing a role, you mean?
I mean, it depends on the game you're playing. I mean, Call of Cthulhu, go around poking things to slowly go insane, but enjoy enjoy the journey. In D&D, go out, save a princess, slay a dragon, or get burnt to a crisp. Dig into that dungeon, cleanse the dark forest, or whatever, because that is the point of the game. Whatever stories you weave around that are weaved around that basic core concept of playing the game.
Yeah, and we've talked before about the people that want to have a novella for their background story. You need to have some idea what your character's motivation is. You don't need to go that far unless you really, really want to, and it's going to have some use somewhere other than, hey, look, I've got a new doorstop when my player dies in the third encounter of the night. But the last game I played in where I was an actual player, I just played a straight out fighter, and he was had been in the army, got out. He didn't stay in long enough to retire, but he had some basic fighting skill. He was lawful neutral. He followed orders really well. He expected others to follow the orders that he gave them. And all he wanted to do was get to the point where he could retire comfortably. And that little background that I gave him was the pair of sunglasses that I wore when I played, that every interaction he had was based on those motivations. Sometimes that put him at odds with the party. Sometimes, it had different implications. So you were talking before about somebody that was going to be the DM for the seven of us. When I decide what my character is and why he is, I don't care who the DM is. I can make it work. Sometimes it may not be as fun as other times. I mean, I've been in campaigns that were just an absolute blast. Those are the ones where in high school or college, we'd start playing Friday night at 6 and we'd finish Sunday night at 7 when it was time to get an hour or two of study and a little bit of sleep before classes in the morning, because it was just so much fun. So tying into what Andy said, motivation to play the game and to it's just like a video game. Well, if you take this character, you get this set of certain skills. Well, I'm going to play this D&D campaign with this background and this goal, so it's going to be different. Even if I'm playing a fighter 2 different times, each one of them is going to have a different motivation and a different outlook. Whether that's alignment, who they choose to worship, or whatever. So
you did bring up the player with the big backstory, and that's a style of player I admit that I would struggle with. The player who writes a big long backstory and insists on giving you the backstory and wanting it to be incorporated. But my response to that player now would be more along the lines. I don't know if you've seen Seth Skorkowski's video on backstories.
I don't
And
think so.
his approach is let the player write as much as they want, but it's the player's job to bring aspects of the backstory into the game, not the DM's job to incorporate the backstory into it all. His approach
I
is
thought you were going to say let them write as much as they want and just throw it in the bin.
no. I want a couple of lines as to why you're adventuring. That's it. That's all I want. And I don't even mind if I don't get. If I don't get that, it doesn't bother me.
When the Purple Fighter books came out for second edition, one of the kits they had was a gladiator. So I played a fighter who was a gladiator background, and I talked with a DM. It's like, one thing, being a gladiator, I have been exposed to some opponents in the pit that other people of my age and experience might not have seen. So we made a list of 10 common and uncommon humanoid type things that I might have engaged with. Wouldn't know their language or anything like that, but I could identify them. So that in that aspect, we tied a little bit of background into gameplay.
An example of what Seth suggested. For example, on a very, very basic level, if you've got a character who has a bit of a dodgy background and is possibly being might have a bounty on their head, it's your job as a player when you go in to sort of reiterate that, because you would go into the inn and you'd say I just pause at the door cautiously and just scan the room to see if anyone's paying me any attention.
I'm going to check the bulletin board to see if there's a flyer with my picture on it somewhere.
We've lost Daniel. I don't know if he's messing with his camera or got something to do, but cheers, Daniel.
Well, I also think this ties neatly into TNT's or TNTori's question there for how we then, make combat engaging for the players.
I've got that star to come to. Yeah. Go on, Saxius.
No, what for TNT's question?
Yeah.
Well, do the unexpected, like when it comes to a lot of it, because the trap that the players might be falling into, as you mentioned, TNT, is they do the movement, they say roll, I hit, so on. Well, have the enemies do different attacks back. I like to, again, when you've got like a group of enemies, one of them might say, we're going to tackle him. Just run up there, get down, rugby tackle, get them up by the knees, get them down the ground. They're not prone. One orc has sacrificed himself so that the other two can come in there and start doing advantage attacks or get bonuses for their attacks. Have the players, literally, sometimes if it's, a combat or a bar brawl, rather than it just being fist fights, someone could go, I'm going to take another person's drink and throw it at you. And they can spiral out from there. Improvised weapon attacks. What? Why not just go for it? The rules are very simple. Yes, you get a penalty for your attack, but you know what? That's not going to stop the professional wrestlers from always picking up the 7-foot ladder and running up to do these things. Why? Because at that point, it's throwing in the element of chaos.
Yes.
Throwing in this. Yeah,
I was going to reply to this question with something very similar. Don't always have the enemies do the optimal or the predictable thing.
No.
Like with, for example, that fight where Iman's character got hurt last night in Call of Cthulhu.
You mean Manfred?
No, when your character got hurt.
Oh, you mean last session?
The session before. Yes, I could have just been boring and just had him fire another shot at you. But I thought, no, how do I get them to do it? Wasn't the optimal thing to do. It turned out to be, well, it turned out to be pretty effective, but it wasn't the optimal thing to do. I mean, the optimal thing to do would have just been to unload another bullet into you.
Yes.
But it was a thematic thing to do.
But
so
it adds to that element of like realism. Like in a real fight, he probably would just stamp on me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you don't always think optimally. Just think thematically. Think naturally. Think how a fight might progress organically, and then describe them. Describe what happens. Thank you, Elfbait. Elfbait has work.
Wait, really?
Cheers for joining us. Good to see you on the stream again.
And I can also throw in sometimes, I mean, depending, if we're using, for example, 5th edition, it doesn't always have the same expanded weapon list that you might have from 2nd edition or 1st edition. But one thing I introduced in my 5th edition game was that I had the players come up against enemies who used the bolas. And the player's like, oh, bolus, we're not going to take damage from that. No, but when your arms are strung together, where are your spells?
And if your feet are tied together, how do you run away? Or how
exactly.
do you engage the enemy?
And then I also introduced the whole thing of like, oh, they get out, blow darts. It's like, oh, that's going to do 1d4 points of damage. That's nothing. Oh, there's paralysis poisons. Why are you rolling a d6, Oscar? Why is my legs not moving? What is happening here?
Or when your party thinks they can bully around the local townspeople, and you got a farmer on a horse with a lasso. A lasso doesn't have to penetrate your armor; it only has to hit you. So your +3 does absolutely nothing when you've just been hogtied in 2.4 seconds by the 15-year-old girl that's been on a horse her whole life.
I was going to mention the idea of a lasso because if you start bringing in different ways of fighting, your players will engage and start thinking of different things as well. And that's always, I mean, the player I mentioned earlier who was quite quiet to start with, who got more engaged when became puzzles to solve. The party were up against a pair of gargoyles that were flying and dive bombing them at will because the party only had one magic dagger amongst them. One of the members of the party had a lasso. A lasso will still work against a gargoyle. We'll still bring it out of the sky and bring it down to the ground. And that's exactly what they did. And it was like, good. Yeah. That's what I want to see. So that's something I want to encourage. Get players doing that sort of thing and using the environment.
Throw weighted nets at them. Use charm animal on the enemy's mounts. Use speak with animal. Things like that. Like literally just think outside of it. You come up against you in the middle of a fight, you suddenly hear the enemy's druid going brr, brr, and then your horse starts neighing and throwing you off. It's like, well, he's promised it a lot of carrots. He's just got to throw you off.
Look at all the asterisks and footnotes under the different weapons. This one can take a rider off a horse. This one can disarm your opponent. This one does double damage if set versus a charge. All those different things can play in.
But again, like this is the sort of things that you're finding in older editions, 1st and 2nd edition, where they really went into these sort of details. But when it comes to, again, Ifti and Tories using, 5th edition, just either feel free to, just sort of go like, okay, well, what were these weapons used for? Oh, you had an 8 or 10 foot long spear. All right, we put that down, set it for a charge. It's now, a porcupine. You're not charging that with a horse. You're not charging that with a horse. A horse will throw you off before he goes anywhere near that. Or heck, if Tiantori, if you're on the Discord, let me know. I will be more than happy to get you a copy of the 2nd edition Player's Handbook, because there are some gems in there when it comes to weapons that you can easily use. Again, bolasses, weighted nets, just the pole arms. The pole arms are fantastic. That you've got so many things you can use them for. So make it different. Have the monsters tackle the players. If they're fighting in mud, get those players tackled. win those grappling rolls and force those player characters to be face first in the mud and make them suffocate, drown them in that.
Are you thinking of the Mud Wizard, John? Or is it just me?
Well, and don't
No,
forget,
I'm
there's a layer of green slime under the water on top of that mud too that they're going to have to slug through to get to the other side.
Yeah, well,
I'm just thinking that Tian Tori's players are going to absolutely regret if she spends 30 minutes in the company of
throw
Saxius
oil at
learning
the
all these
players.
ideas.
Throw oil at them. That is, you don't need to penetrate their armor for any of that. They just need to be covered in oil. Their next thing is just light them torches. Let players do it. Why don't you do it back?
And something a lot of people don't take into account is if there's oil on the floor, even if it's not lit, there's a chance you're going to fall and become prone.
Yes, it's great. Oh, this is fantastic stuff. And when it's, again, you want to make it, okay, let's not even talk about, players move around. Let's just look at the environment for the engagements. When it's cold and you've got ice and you're having to run around, you're not going to have a chance to, 6 seconds, look down, do that, unless you are trained to be alert. And there's going to be a chance that you can roll, fail a dexterity roll, suddenly slip, whoop, you're now on your ass.
I'm leaning forward just to remind Saxius of a certain moment in one of our campaigns. You know which campaign it's going to be.
Do you have? Why do you always bring up the goblins?
Do you remember that poor farmhand who just went to the toilet?
Yes.
Do you remember how he died?
Yes. Go on. Remind the crowd.
No.
Remind the crowd, John. You are eager to do it. Go on. Let me relive it.
It was
He
me
would have been a torment.
who crawled up underneath him.
Yes, because the loo is the place where you decide that as a goblin, it's like, ha! They are congregating here. I shall now surprise them. Ha! Butt attack.
Yes. Oh, that poor farmhand. Oh.
You lot. The moment you learned you can't catch diseases, it opened up a kettle of worms I weren't ready for. Either way, again, yes. Either way, Tian Tori, there are a lot of things that you can do to make it, different. If it is rainy, have penalties for attacks. If it's snowy, make it difficult to move around. Make them miserable if it's snowy. It sucks to be out in the cold when you've got to fight. If you want the enemies to be different, just do different things. Tackle them, throw nets at them. Sick dogs on them and have the dogs grab them by their arms and start wrestling with them. Do things like this. Like the players are going to be absolutely baffled. Like, oh my god, I'm being tackled by a giant hound and I'm being dragged away.
I just watched. When I was painting miniatures last night, I needed some noise in the background, so I put in Beastmaster. He's got like his 6 animals or whatever it is that's with him, and each one of those did a different thing in an encounter. I mean, go back and watch some old movies because there are so many cool ideas you can get from those. Shattering a weapon, if you have something when you hit their sword, it breaks their sword. It's a pretty simple mechanic. I think it's even in I know it's in 3rd edition.
Yes,
but I think it's even in the 1st edition in the DMG. I know they've got fainting and disarming and.
You can make these again. I'm thinking from the perspective of 5th edition. Make it up. You're fighting in an environment. Feel free to sort of have like the enemies like, oh, he brings up his sword to parry. Let me roll to see this, and let's just give it like 50-50. It's snowy conditions. The weapon's poorly maintained. We'll probably say like you've got to roll above a 15 to pass, something like that. You roll a 10, bam, the weapon breaks, and it's like, oh no. It's been done. You, the fighter, who'll always look after your gear, this is why. This is a thing you can do, players. You can break their weapons.
When I was in Aikido, one of the things we would do when we were doing sword techniques is you have one hand on the back of the blade because it's a single-edged blade, and one on the handle itself to do a double overhand block. And then you just do a pivot and slide it right down their bow staff or whatever and take out their fingers, wrists, or whatever. As because at that point it's an unprotected unmoving thing. They either let go of their weapon to get out of your blade's cutting path, or they
lose the ability to hold on to their weapon.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be an issue with. I am going to dump on 5th edition here. It might be a bit of an issue with the fact that 5th edition is very specific in a lot of its rules. Certain spells will target an item, but they can't target an item that is being held. There's a lot of things in there in the 5th edition rules which seem to lean towards not taking away a character's main shtick. But to get players to think and engage, sometimes you have to do that. Sometimes you really have to do that.
Yeah, but do some of this for the NPCs.
Absolutely, yeah.
Like it, but when you put this out there, sorry, let me just finish this one specific one.
Okay.
When you put it out there that this is something that can be happening to the NPCs, you can also at the end of the game go, "Hi guys, these are some mechanics I want to introduce. The rules do not support them, but I think they were cool. Did you like them? Here is how I did it. Are we okay trying this out? If it doesn't work, bam, you just discontinue it. That's how you build your foundations on house rules. You test something out. You use the MOOC NPCs to sort of show them, hey, here's a cool thing. There's some mechanics behind it. Want to give it a go? Cool. Well, I'll do it that way. It'll become a two-edged thing. Monsters will fight differently. Players will fight differently. The players might suddenly go like, oh, they've got a big shield. I've got an axe. I'm going to attack the shield. He doesn't have a shield anymore. Less AC. Sorry, my rant is over.
I mean,
no, it's fine.
This whole part of the topic is one reason why there's one module that it gets quite a mixed reviews and mixed opinions about it. But A4 in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords. I don't know how familiar. Iman certainly doesn't know it. I don't know. Halakar will know it. Saxius, are you familiar with that one?
What? Which one?
A4 in the Dungeons of the Slave Lords.
Oh no.
Right. It starts horribly. The players are railroaded into being captured at the end of A3. And that is crap. And the worst thing about the adventure is how do you get the players into the situation? Because at the start of A4, the party are beneath a volcano that they've been basically dropped into a dungeon, catacombs beneath a volcano, sacrificed to the god of the volcano. They're expected to die down there. The players wake up. Party wake up. They're all they're mid-level characters. They're level sort of 5, 6, 7 by this point. So they're quite capable adventurers. They're used to hitting things with swords and winning. They're used to wearing shiny armor. They're used to casting flashy spells, all that sort of stuff. They start that adventure with nothing but a loincloth. It is pitch black. They cannot see. They have. I think the clerics are allowed to start or allowed to pray for some very basic first level spells, but that's it. They've got no equipment. They've got to find their way out. All of a sudden, simple kobolds, skeletons, things like that become so much more deadly. When you can't see, all you can wield is a makeshift sling that you've made by taking your loincloth off and fill it in using stones. Or an animal bone that you've found. You find a femur, you're using it as a makeshift club. You find a piece of wood and there's a bit of tar in the corner of a cave. If you can find a way of lighting it, you can now see. Wow. And
what if one were to use their fists as a weapon?
Oh, it's a basic weapon, but it's
rocks.
And yes, fill my loincloth with sand to make a sap. Exactly.
I think Andy made a good point slightly above as well.
The rule of cool rather than rules of written when something cool is attempted and succeeded. Yeah, as long as you don't overuse it, as long as it's you use it consistently, sparingly, but at opportune moments.
Well, even then, like, you still, like, in rules as written, you've still got tackling rules. You've still got all of
Yeah,
these
yeah,
other opportunities that you can use, which are rules as written. But the point we're also trying to make is that make it as a cool thing where it's done against the monsters, so that you can introduce it over to the players. Again, that's the psychology part, so that they have got a buy-in for why they would want to have this in. Yes, it can be done against them, but cool, they could do it against the monsters.
Mhm.
And yeah,
Mm.
but if you want. I think
That,
that's
that,
definitely.
that particular adventure, it really engages the thinking players. That's the point of it.
Yeah, but I am woefully turned off by the concept that I'm going to be ending up as a slave, and that's written in. But that's just
Well, you're not
my
a slave. You've
perspective.
just been you've been sacrificed. You
If you get out of this, then you do okay. But if there's a, they make it seem like it's time pressed because you will feel tremors from the volcano getting ready to erupt, and there'll be roots hanging down from the ceiling that wiggle and move and all that. So there's an implied sense of urgency, but the countdown doesn't really start until you get back up into sunlight, and then the volcano is going to explode, and you have to get to a ship and get off the island.
Which fair enough, Ian. But as a player at the moment, I have been told that, and again, that's just a preference thing because I'm not interested in Skyrim starts or standoffs. And that's just me as a player. At that point,
you finally confront the slave lords, and you see them laughing, but you don't hear any sound, and you realize there's a wall of force between you and them. And then the area you're in starts to fill with gas, and you remember this gas because it knocked you out before. No saving throw, just the whole party's knocked unconscious. And that was for the tournament aspect of it.
Yeah, that's not great, is it? I mean, that's how it starts.
Yeah, fair enough. Not all modules were made for home run. Some of them really were made for tournaments, which I'm still a bit baffled that there were D&D tournament modules. That's not anything I would ever expect.
When I ran those adventures, the slave lords just kicked the party's ass. That's all there was to it, because they are pretty powerful, especially compared to a party that has been through a lot and been worn down to get there.
Absolutely.
But they didn't kill them; they just subdued them. So
because they've got a purpose for them.
It was kind of railroady because that was how I was going to get them into the beginning of A4, but it wasn't. Oh well, magic gas smoke appears and you just all go unconscious. At least they felt like they had a chance to do something.
That's fair enough. I mean, I suppose that's also a part of the motivation for the players. Because I mean, hell, from a situation like this, I mean, one, I'll be angry at the DM, but that's just again preference. But two, like if that can be redirected towards the NPCs, I mean, come hell and fury, you're gonna be seeing them players. They're gonna be bathing for blood. I mean, I tried to steal a horse from a player the other day. That horse thief did not get far before the archer ran out with his heavy crossbow and went no, and shot him. Quite severely, so he fell off the horse, ran up to him with the heavy crossbow to be pulled back, only to shoot him dead. Cold blood, everything. Don't touch his horse.
My lawful neutral fighter that I played in the 3rd edition game, that was the last one I was a player in, there was a druid in the party that liked to play practical jokes. Well, my fighter had no use for practical jokes whatsoever because horseplay is going to lead to someone getting killed in the military. That was his thought.
Mm-hmm.
So the druid summoned a bunch of squirrels and had them climb up my fighter's back and chewed through a strap on my backpack or something. I didn't realize it at first until my backpack started swinging off to the side, and I see the squirrel running away. So I pulled up my bow and shot it. The druid got all pissed off and said, "Hey, first of all, I'm bigger than you. Second of all, you don't do that stuff. You don't purposely and maliciously destroy your teammates' equipment, or it's gonna come back to haunt the whole party."
Because you're very lawful neutral of you.
Yeah.
We have a role to play. We shall do it. We shall work together. We are a team. There are rules.
And that's the one our magic user got killed. So I had enough money saved up. So I don't remember what I was trying to get, but I had enough money saved up. I paid to get Raise Dead done on this magic user. So from then on, no matter what happened in an encounter, I made sure that magic user lived because he still owed me money.
Yeah.
So he purposely didn't pay his debt back very fast.
It looks like Andy has run tournament scenarios at conventions, but looking from what he's saying at the moment. So there you go. We have a tournament DM in chat at the moment.
An undead groundhog.
On that note, though, I am gonna have to call it an end for me. It's pumpkin hour. I need my beauty sleep.
Okay.
Yes. All right. That was a good topic, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. I hope most of us have walked away with a little bit more enriched. That's the point of these streams. So, yeah. Thank you very much.
Cheers, Saxius.
No worries.
Right.
Cheers, Saxius. See you later, mate.
So, if you are sat in chat now and you have something you think to you think you can contribute towards the general theme, I mean, it's a little early to go into waffle mode. So I'm going to plonk, maybe against my better judgment, but if you're sat out there now, I'm going to put the link there. We can accept more people into the chat.
There is one thing I wanted to mention, still on TM Tory question. One of Bear's Palladium sessions that we were part of, it was Laurelin, wasn't it? He just kept casting Cloud of Slumber, and at one point Bear was just like, oh, for God's sake.
Yes. Yeah.
It's interesting at first because obviously I've never played a magic user. I've always just played fighters. It's just simpler for me, right? Obviously being a newbie. So when he's there, like thinking of all these spells, I'm just like, he just does Cloud of Slumber. I'm sure there's a million other things he could do, but that's what he wants to do.
I mean, you've got to sort of give the players situations in which to use these spells and use these various items, especially if a player starts doing the same thing over and over. I think it partly falls on the DM to bring in a few situations that stop them from doing it, that stop them
call
from
for something different.
Yeah, because same thing over and over again can get a little bit yeah. So having something that resists that sort of spell, not all the time, because obviously the player will want to be able to do their thing most of the time, but every so often you've got to push them. You've got to push them out their comfort zone. You've got to get them thinking, and I think having a rich environment helps them as well, so they can start using the environment to their advantage. One I have mentioned on the stream before, and I was really proud of my players for doing this. Those who are regulars on my stream will know, will have heard this before, but my party were played through an adventure called the Village of Homlet, which a lot of people will know, and they got beaten up by Lareth at the end, and they fled, and it became it became a bit of a running villain for them, and so I added it to the campaign. We were running through modules, but I added it through the modules into the modules that Lareth was pursuing the same artifact that they were. So that they encountered him en route to one of their destinations. They were no longer first level. They were now fourth level, fifth level. So they were a bit more capable. But Lareth had with him a couple of his best lieutenants, about 30 men-at-arms, and a group of bugbears.
Okay.
So there's too much there for a party of 6 or 7 level 4 characters to take on. The way they took him on, they observed, they waited, they followed from a distance, waited for him to make camp, watched which tent he got into, all from a distance. And then when his group of men had all retreated to their tents, having had their campfire and eaten and drank their fill, they crept closer to his camp, and they got a magic item called a folding boat. which you
Ooh.
use a command word to make the boat bigger, smaller, compact into a box, that sort of thing. And they had two magic users in the party who both, through the luck of the dice, had hawk familiars.
Right.
They got both of their hawk familiars to fly over the camp, over Lareth's tent, and one of the magic users then projected the command word for the boat using ventriloquism to throw his voice the distance to make it as big as it could possibly go, and they pinned Lareth under his own tent with a folding boat.
That's freaking clever.
It was brilliant. I gave him a saving throw versus breath weapon, which he failed completely, which meant he was pinned. He wasn't dead, but he was pinned. He took 66 damage. And then they charged the camp as all the knights were, all his men were obviously disorientated, coming out of the tents to say, "What's happened? What's happened?" Unarmored, half of them haven't got their weapons, and suddenly a group of heavily armed adventurers are charging into the camp. The bugbears were neutralized with an entangle spell. One of the party's rogues then drank a potion of diminution, crawled in the back of the camp while he was about six inches tall, under the flaps of Lareth's tent, and force-fed him poison.
Oh, wow.
There you go. And they won. And they took about 10 points of damage throughout the entire combat against all these enemies. And I just had to sit and give them a round of applause because I didn't expect that. But they came up with this amazing use of what they got at their disposal, giving the party minimum risk. But they were engaging with the whole situation of trailing an enemy through wilderness, and the enemy had a big group with him, but they sort of guessed that they wouldn't be all that organized, and they were quite overconfident because there's a lot of them. So they just went ahead with this plan, and it worked beautifully, absolutely beautiful.
That is ingenious.
It was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
A perfect example of using brains over brawn.
Absolutely. Well, the party had a cavalier who, of course, charged in the middle of the melee on his horse.
Oh,
and started mashing all the enemies. Took out the lieutenant straight away because that's what cavaliers have to do, and just charged through. And they
did they just go for the highest ranking person then?
Yeah. And it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic.
That's amazing. I'd have loved to have overheard that. That would have been fantastic.
Oh yeah. But that's the sort of engagement I like as a DM, because it shows that my players are
thinking about it and really invested
into the game.
in it.
Yeah, they're invested in the game. They're thinking about that. They are protective of their characters as well. They're in a situation where I'll force them to think by giving them these overwhelming numbers of enemies, but by forcing them, pushing them out of that comfort zone of being adventurers that usually win their fights, it brings out the best in them. Anyway, Andy, are you still trying to join the stream? Have you tried clicking the link, Andy? Because I haven't seen you appear in the green room.
The link's also in the Discord if you're still here, mate. Yeah,
it is. Yeah. In stream invites, and it should be able to bring you straight in, and I'll see you hovering in the background. It'd be nice to have you on stream.
It would.
Yes.
John, have you ever seen the posters? They came out years ago. Jason T made them, and he made like a cartoon kind of walkthrough of different dungeons.
Yes, they're brilliant. Recommend them.
I have the first set of 7. Now that I'm in my office, I've got to get them framed so I can put them up. But yeah, I was just wondering if you'd ever seen those. I actually got them right here.
It says he's waiting, John.
He hasn't appeared on my thing at the bottom. Oh, I've given.
No,
I've accidentally pasted an old link. Sorry, Andy.
Ah,
That was an old link. Try this one.
oopsies.
If anybody clicked on the link, I apologize. That's the right one. For some reason, the stream invites page didn't open at the latest post. It opened a post from mid-March. I don't know why it does that sometimes. That's Discord for you.
Get your
Yes,
butts in here.
That Jay, the way that he presents those adventures, those classic adventures, is fantastic, and the way the characters are interacting with all the encounters and the comic moments about what happens to the characters, they're superb. They're superb.
I was looking those up last night because when I pulled those out, it's like I wonder if he ever put out any more. And I saw he's got 3 more for sale that I don't have. He did the Giants with G1, G2, and G3, but I saw images of other ones that weren't in his shop. So I don't know if he did them and just never put them up for sale, or if they sold out or what. But he had Tomoe-chan as one, and the caption up at the top was something like, "Why die in a dark, dank dungeon when you can die in a beautiful Mesoamerican jungle?"
Yes.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Good
Andy.
evening.
Welcome to the
I'm-
stream.
I'm on no camera because you don't want to see me sitting in bed.
Fair enough. That's fair enough.
And I'm on call with work, so some bloody floaty thing might phone from anywhere around the world saying, we can't get to the peds because we've locked them in the safe. But anyway, I just wanted to say, tournament, I used to love playing or running tournament scenarios back in the day, particularly Gen Con UK, before the living stuff happened. Because, like with the Slave Lords, it was a complete and utter bloody setup to start with. You were dropped in somewhere, and you had to go from wherever you appeared. But it was playing a character that you were given. It was the situation you were dropped into, and you had to go from there. And it's great fun. And I've written a few of them as well. So, and I was quite serious, and I said 3 a.m. rewriting the final because what was provided from TSR was a pile of crap.
So, engaging players. Any sort of tips from you, Andy?
Yeah, let's see. I think you've already covered a lot of it, like trying to get people who are very quiet to join in, putting a spotlight on them. Doesn't always work. Some people will just sit there and whisper at you and not say anything. But in general, it's like in combat. It can be a case of going around and I hit it, I miss it. But if you can get them to describe what they're doing, that can engage them more and bring them out of themselves. That helps, as well as I posted earlier, use the environment. So have something strange there, whether it's water or ice or chandeliers. Try and describe something that can encourage them to make use of it. Partly it comes back to, well, I've given you the opportunity. If you can't take it or you don't see that it's there, get the opponents to actually make use of some of that, and that may give people an idea.
For example, backstage curtains at the opera, and
things like that.
and wooden heads.
Yes. Yeah, it's put something there, and if they don't use it, they don't use it. You can't force people. In fact, you shouldn't be forcing people to use it, should you? It's a case of give them the environment, give them options, let them work out how they can use them. I mean, with those wooden heads, Joe could pick them up, throw them to me, and I could throw, and he could throw. The other thing we could have done potentially was use them like giant marbles and roll them, loads of them under their feet so that they could trip up. There's all sorts of options with things like that. So
just so chat though, this was in the Call of Cthulhu game, and at the end of the Milan chapter, they're in an opera house, and it did turn into a bit of a Benny Hill type chase scene.
We're definitely playing.
Both times I've run that scenario, that's what's happened at the end. But there were 2 goons that they were trying. The were there 2 or 3 party members? There was 2 party members who'd gone into the opera house pursuing 2 goons, and they were both
Yeah.
trying to get both groups were trying to get the same item, and there were piles of props behind the stage, and there was a big curtain, and some of the props were carved wooden heads, and the characters were using them as projectile weapons, throwing them at the enemies. And Andy finished off one of the goons by running up to him and cracking him over the head with a wooden head.
After I dropped the curtain on him, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say that because Andy asked me if he understood how the curtains worked, and
I actually made a good roll, I think, then, for once.
You made a good roll, yeah.
You did, yes.
You only understand how the curtains work, you understand how the quick release works.
Yes.
He released the curtain, landed on the goon, tangled him up, and now Andy ran, while an opera was going on in front of them, ran up behind and started bashing him over the head with his stick. You broke your stick. So you picked up a wooden head and you hit the goon over the head while he was stuck under the curtain. Yeah, but that's about, again, making combat a bit more than just I hit,
Yeah,
I miss.
yeah. Come up with ideas, and so the environment. It's difficult at times because you have to describe it. People don't always pick up on what you describe.
Yeah.
There was a video I saw the other day. I forget who it was, but the guy was saying, "Oh yes, go into all the details of what's there and describe everything and that." And then tell them at the end, oh, there's a red dragon in the room. It's like, no, you walk into the room, you can do a very quick overview, and then there's a red dragon in front of you. You can then pick up the other stuff during the combat. People are not going to sort of minutely examine the room and then go, oh, there's a red dragon. It's the complete opposite of what was actually being, the guy was suggesting. But it is a case of, I think, environment is an important part of being able to encourage people to do things. And that's a lot of that can be descriptive rather than if you're using figures and table, it doesn't always work because you haven't got everything there that is actually in the place.
Yeah.
Encouraging people to ask, is there X there? Is there a chandelier? Is there, something?
There's a certain streamer who always moans about players asking DMs questions. No.
Encourage it.
Should be asking questions, asking about the environment. Good evening, Doof. It's a bit late where you are.
Hello, sure is.
After your bedtime.
I mean, you guys are completely correct. The asking questions in D&D, that's the gameplay. That is what you want.
Absolutely. And if a player asks, if you're a DM and a player asks you about the environment, they're engaged in your game. They want to know more.
Very true.
And it gives you the opportunity to describe more. And if they say, for example, are there any torches? Are there any any sconces on the walls with torches in? There can suddenly be them there because the players asked for them.
Make it up on the fly. If it sounds good, oh yes, there is something there. And it may not be that they can immediately get to it. Maybe they've got to do something else to actually grab what they want. But it gets them doing something.
Yeah. I mean, that pile of heads, it only said in the adventure that there was a pile of heads in one of the rooms that you were walking past to get to the stage. But was it whether it was you or Joker said, are there any wooden piles
Joker,
of heads?
I think.
Yeah, Joker. Yeah, why not? Yeah, of course there's going to be. Yeah. Go on. Have fun with them.
Oh, how fun he did.
How fun he did, yeah. So, Doof, engaging the players. Any master tips from you old school gamer?
Has anybody talked about go for EXP and EXP penalties?
No, we haven't really talked about the mechanics of the games.
Because I would think that's the first place to go. Making sure that the mechanics are in place, because they do encourage, or at least in AD&D, they do encourage interesting play. They are there to make your players take risks and go for the big money.
I do a lot of
Also-
stat checks for that kind of stuff. I want to do this. Okay, well that seems like a dexterity based thing. Roll a 20 and get under your dexterity.
Yeah.
But one of the reasons why I like the idea of gold for XP is it takes away the player's assumption that you have to fight everything. The main reward is the treasure. Is there a way of getting the treasure without putting your lives on the line? Can you be clever and find it?
I mean, in AD&D, half of your XP pretty much is coming from monsters. However, Gold for EXP reinforces the idea that it's a dungeon exploration game, not a fighting game.
Yes.
And a consequence of this is that creative problem solving is also going to get you the treasure.
I say once you've broken the habit of the murder hobos, yes.
Absolutely. And I say there are XP penalties in AD&D for players. It says that it's going to cost you more. Use those training rules. It says it's going to cost you more to go up levels if you haven't been doing your job.
It is very important that together with the fact that you do not get full EXP if you're exploring dungeon areas which are too easy for you, means that it just encourages players to actually go for interesting content.
Yeah, go for the interesting stuff. Yes, absolutely. And equally, I see people throw out those training rules. But again, you can bring in a lot of engagement by using the training rules, by bringing in NPCs who the players have to work with, who can then provide the training.
I would say that the training rules actually do put a lot of pressure on the DM to come up with all of the trainers within the region, because as the DM, you need to keep track of all the big players within the region to know how the players are going to be able to get to them eventually.
Chief trainer in my campaign is a one-armed halfling named Onion Buns Bumblethump.
Yes.
He got his nickname Onion Buns because he wears leather pants, very tight leather pants, because he says he's got a backside that makes the girls cry. So he is Onion Buns.
I don't want to know where he got the bumble stump bit from, though.
That's the one arm.
Oh, okay. No, I'm thinking.
He lost a hand as a kid trying to get something trying to get a piece of cheese out of a trap. So that made him decide he wanted to learn how to disarm traps, and that's how he became a thief in the first place.
Yeah,
but he's the guild master of the guild.
I was just going to reply to Nerd's comment here, but I think Dirty History and Hobbies has already said so. Certainly in earlier versions of D&D, it is clearly stated in the books that you don't get the XP just for killing the monsters. You get the XP for the encounter. And if you talk your way out of it, if you bribe the monsters, if you find a way to bypass them, as long as the risk is there, you get the XP.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You don't have to fight them. You don't have to kill them. And having XP for treasure only emphasizes that as well, because the treasure is the ultimate goal, not the death of the monsters. Not always. Sometimes your goal is to slay certain monsters, but in general, to advance the characters, the treasure is the goal.
Also, if you ever go out monster hunting in AD&D, what monsters are you hunting? It's always dragons, giants, or whatever other creature that has big ass horns.
Yeah, of course. But how many dragons are really out there? You'll just encounter lots of other things along the way. Yeah, well, I don't think so.
Tons. The encounter tables are full of them. Like it is very rare to get a full dungeon without a single dragon.
I don't tend to put dragons in dungeons.
Yeah, how did they get in there? Sorry if that's a stupid question, but
ideally you design the dungeon so there is a way, but a lot of dragons, certainly the tougher dragons in AD&D, have spell casting abilities, and maybe polymorph might be amongst the polymorph self might be amongst there. Certain dragons can disguise themselves in human form, so there are ways of getting in and out. But if it's a stupid dragon, if it's a white dragon, it's not going to be in a dungeon. It's going to be in a cave high up on an icy hill, icy mountain.
Yeah, I was going to say dragons. Usually, it's you say a mountain or something like that, and there's some sort of entrance somewhere.
It's like a cave, yeah.
Yes. And that's where you use a little bit of foreboding regarding what exactly is up there.
And if they manage to kill the white dragon in the back of that cave, they find this tiny entrance that they can enlarge, and they then find themselves at the Mountains of Madness, and you can cross.
At the Mountains of Madness, you say?
Yes.
The Mountains of Madness, you say? Oh. You mean that?
I have that.
Yes. I've never run it. I'm scared.
And in third edition D&D, and it might even be in the back of the Cthulhu book, it tells how to do conversions between D&D and Call of Cthulhu, complete with insanity for player characters.
Wow.
At one point, I had planned on making that whole big old book there into a third edition D&D campaign, but then I got tired of all the third edition crap, so I gave up on it.
Just so everyone knows, I mean, Doof, despite your youthful experience, youthful appearance, you are very much an AD&D first edition man, aren't you?
Correct.
Yes. He adopts the old school methods, the old school ways, and they work. They do work. If that's the sort of game you want, if the game you want to run is a classic dungeon delving game, AD&D is a very complete rule set in terms of encounter tables, in terms of the rules regarding how XP is sorted out, and movement, time.
Oh yeah, AD&D is a complete game. It is designed for you to be using everything, and you can pretty much play it as a board game if you wanted to, just rolling up everything as you go. You might not get the best game ever, but it's pretty good.
It works, yeah. I mean, I run AD&D very much. I'm a theatre of the mind DM when it comes to AD&D wherever possible. I don't use all the rules. I streamline combat, and it may make certain people wince a little. I use basic D&D initiative when I run AD&D personally, because I'm running it these days. I'm running it over Discord. It's been a little while since I've run it, but when I ran it over Discord, the emphasis was on you want to keep it moving, because you're playing the game. I was using no visuals; it was all voice. So to keep people engaged, things had to move along at a pace to keep me engaged with my silly head. But it worked, and it can be stripped down like that. I've never played it with all the rules. I've never even attempted it. I would like to, but I'd have to do it in a face-to-face game. I think it would crunch a little too much online. Do you want it face-to-face or online?
Whichever version you're running, wing it half the time anyway. You know, as long as you're consistent, as long as some certain basic things, you're going to go with it. And as long as your group is happy with that, then it works.
Yeah. Do you run mostly online, or do you run face to face?
I do both, pretty much equally. And
how does AD&D? I mean, does it slow down a fair bit online?
At first, I would say it's faster online, since you have a lot of tools like Owlbear, battle maps that you basically do not need to prep at all. That way, it is mostly useful for tracking the HP of the monsters. But other than that, I see no problem in using in any form of play.
See, I mean, I'm not a fan of battle maps. I'm not a fan of
AD&D, the actual exact positionings are not as important. You just need to generally need to know in what melee they are. So because if you hit If you attack in a melee, you roll randomly for which opponent you hit.
I think I think you need to make a bit of a judgment call on that, though. It depends on the nature of the combat. I think if you're up against two ogres that are 15 foot apart from each other, then you can choose
those are
the
two different melees.
Yeah, true.
And also, it does tell you that if you are in a melee with two orcs and one ogre, you should have a 50% chance of hitting an orc or an ogre,
Right.
because the ogre is larger.
I mean, I know that. I mean, I've never played with the random hitting rule unless it's just like a big pack of goblins or a big pack of orcs. If there's a definite, clear main opponent, I allow the party to target it. But it's just down to personal preference. Snuffle Grunt, by the way, on this channel, I'm afraid that's swearing.
Isn't that like a third level ranger, a pathfinder, something like that?
Yeah, it's one of the titles, isn't it? I believe. Yes. But no, third edition, and obviously it turned into Pathfinder when fourth edition came out, because Pathfinder was a reaction to fourth edition. The game became overly structured in terms of player character development. I like an organic feel, and one thing I love about older D&D is how a character doesn't have as many innate abilities. It's what they find that often defines them. So there's less planning involved from the players. I don't like players planning out their career path in advance. I like them having to play, reacting to what's happening to them and what they find and what they encounter. And I think
third edition brought in the build, didn't it? That was the trouble.
Yes.
Yeah, that was my big negative feeling. I mean, I remember first edition, the only thing you even had to plan out was what your next weapon proficiency was going to be, and even that could be dependent on, oh my god, we found this really cool object that nobody can use, and I get another weapon in 2 levels. Let's hold on to that.
I mean, mages could choose which spells they wanted to roll to see if they could understand, but then they start to find them. They start to find them, or start to find someone to teach them. So they weren't definitely going to get those spells that they want.
I mean
having with writing things is because I haven't had the chance to run campaigns in the sense that we're generally talking about because of the structure of the club that I go to and things like that. But I was running first edition, second edition, third, 3.5. 4 never happened, so we'll forget that. And I'm running 5th now. But I was writing tournament scenarios for conventions in 2nd and 3rd and 3.5. But again, it's a different beast because you're setting up the characters to start with. You're defining them as part of that game. It's not a question of people rolling up a character and then you're introducing them to the scenario or to the campaign. So it's my take on it is slightly different because that's where I've come from. That's my background more with things.
My biggest gripe with it is that it moves the fun away from the table. It moves all of the planning, the strategizing away from the table. So you're no longer doing this together with other players. Because in my game, I still see a lot of planning, but it's often let's contact this sage so we can track down this magic item because this character would be very powerful with this magic item specifically.
Right. Okay. Cheers, Snuffle Grunt. Hope we haven't scared you off by not liking Pathfinder.
See you, Snuffle Grunt. Take care, mate.
But yes, yeah, you're right there. I mean, I like the focus of the characters to be on what's happening at the table. Yeah, rather than a player's ability to buy a certain splat book and find a certain path they want to follow.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also, by making it so that you have to progress in the world, there's a greater degree of skill expression on the part of the players.
Yes.
The ability to properly track down and even be able to get to these magic items or whatever you're looking for.
And as we've been talking about engagement, more for the players to engage with regards to the world. They're engaging with the world rather than the numbers on their character sheet as much.
It depends on what level you're
Two
playing
people
at.
that I saw mentioned it, and I don't remember which one it was, but they said get in the habit of saying yes when your player says, can my character do this?
Yes, but
And yes, you can. You may be really, really, really bad at it, but yes, you can. Instead of
You
just
can
saying
try.
no. Yeah.
You can try.
That,
Are you
that
sure?
gets
So-
them to think a little more open-ended. It's like, I can try anything. I don't have to look at, do I have this box checked on my character sheet? Yeah, I'm a fighter and I'm wearing this and I'm carrying that, but can I try to, grab that chandelier and swing across the room and drop down behind the big bad guy and try and backstab him?
yeah, you can always try.
Yeah, and it's up to the DM to make up pretty much on the fly how it might work.
Well, speaking of it, turning on its head what I said just now, I've been running a campaign, for want of a better word, at the club I play at, and we're into season 12 this September, October, November. But we only usually run once a year for 2 or 3 months. So it's been going since 2015. And it started with Homlet. And it's now in the middle of, well, they've already sort of done most of the Rime of the Frost Maiden. But I'm using published adventures because I haven't got the time to try and put everything else together with it. But it has got to the point for the last 3 or 4 seasons, I haven't got a bloody clue what my players are going to do. So it's like I've got a background and then it's like I'll wing it. And they come up with some great mad ideas at times.
Yeah. I've just seen what you've posted in Discord, Halakar.
Oh, that was just for future.
Yeah. Garricon.
I don't know how book to book and wall to wall everything is there, but I'm thinking if there's some downtime.
Well, I'm going to be taking a one-shot Call of Cthulhu adventure with me with a view to running it at a table. That's my plan.
What, to UK Games Expo?
No, to Canada.
Oh, okay. Sorry, my bad.
Canadian, right?
I'm going to Canada. That's a terrible accent. These guys I've had to put up with my attempt at an Italian accent for the last few weeks. It's awful. I can do the French accent.
It's great. I don't know what you're on about. It's great.
I can't do the Italian accent. No.
Caterina Cavallaro.
Caterina Cavallaro. Yes. Yeah, but that's another way of engaging players as well.
I'm fully on Team Funny Voices.
Voices and
Make the game better.
Yeah.
Yes. If as a DM you go in and show that you have no shame,
Yeah.
it helps bring players out of their shells. If as a DM you're the one prancing around the table doing silly voices and just acting a fool some of the time at opportune moments, then yeah, it gets the players involved. It gets the players to realise that there's nothing to be nervous about.
But there's another thing that doing that, not acting the fool as such, but the perhaps silly voice, and it breaks the tension because it is funny, even in a serious moment. So
Absolutely.
My players loved my drunken Elmo when we were in Hamlet.
we got a big axe, I have, yeah. My brother gave it to me. That's the one, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah,
My brother gave it to me.
And I do hate to say it because we do have an American with us, but I'm taken out of the moment a bit when fantasy characters have American accents.
They
Because
don't
to
have much
me,
choice here.
they are Old English and European. It's the Tolkien thing.
Well, here I can do redneck, I can do Southern, I can do Texan. I could try to do Canadian,
But no, I certainly. I mean, I think was it Omen Owl that said one thing that helps me running Call of Cthulhu is having an English accent. And I think that's obviously I play it with mostly English people. It's only Manfred in our current group who's not an Englishman. The rest of us are just used to English accents here. But hey ho. I think it works well when doing bad guys and horror.
Well, also as I used to work for NCR, so I was in Dayton a lot, and with an Australian friend of mine, and Scott turned and said, "So Andy, what's it like being a foreigner for a change?" I said, "What do you mean? I'm not foreign. I'm English."
Yeah. Yes.
If we have something from your culture in our museum, then we are part of that country.
Well, I mean, we have pretty much hammered the topic tonight. I think we've had Call of Cthulhu would be New England accents. Well, it depends where it's set. I tend to run more Call of Cthulhu games in Europe and Britain.
With your amazing accent.
Yeah. I like the Cthulhu Gaslight setting for that reason. I think Victorian England works really, really well for horror. The stuffy attitudes and
That's why I really like Bloodborne. It works really well, combining the Victorian and the Lovecraftian into one.
But yes, excuse me. You'd be glad to know my cough is almost gone. That was the first time I think I've coughed on stream. If I was running it in America, I do try and put on an American accent, and I apologize if it takes people out of the moment because my American accent is not all that. But hey ho, the way it is.
Well, New England does have its own dialect. I mean, it's definitely distinctive from other places.
Yeah, it's one I can't do. I know there's certain ways they say things, isn't there?
They forget a lot of R's, and then they put them in places they're not supposed to be, and things like that. Like they drive a car, but they wash their face. You know.
Oh, that accent. Okay.
We have a New Englander with us here. Hello, Duralumin. He's from that part of the world. Okay. Yes, but yeah. If you want to engage your players, be the one who plays the fool. It breaks down those any nervousness very, very quickly.
One thing I enjoyed doing was in Call of Cthulhu, when my previous character started to go insane, I could just play up with that a little bit. So at one point we were traveling on the Orient Express, and we got introduced to an NPC woman, and the first thing I said was "Bonjour, madame." The second thing I said was, "Do you have any rope?" Because I was suicidal.
Yes. Yeah. I think my throat's starting to give up on me a little bit, but
well, it's nearly pumpkin time.
It is nearly pumpkin time. So, anything else you guys want to talk about for the last 12 minutes? Because we've hammered the topic. Doof, you're currently running AD&D. How often are you running it, and what sort of levels are you running it at?
I'm running it 3 times a week, and we are currently approaching 9th level. Overall. So it's pretty
Strongholds time.
It's about time. They're making moves.
Good. And that goes back to the player engagement thing. when your characters in AD&D get to level 8, 9, 10, they're supposed to find a place to settle down and build
Yeah.
a stronghold.
I do think it's important for it not to be too jarring. You kind of need to present things like abandoned keeps and monster layers that can be overtaken early on, like at early mid-level, level 4 already.
So they can
You
start
also
planning.
do, you also want like the local lords to kind of invite them to become involved, because the level 4 fighter is a pretty big deal in AD&D, even though that lord's like level 12.
That's one of the good things about the Village of Hamlet module.
The moat house.
My players wanted to renovate the moat house and use that as a base of operations.
Amazing idea.
Sadly, the party all died in G3. Half of them died in G3. The remainder died in EX1 Dungeon Land. So
if they got that far,
never...
I think I would renovate the Frost Giant setting. That's much more fun than Moat House.
Well, they never thought about that place. They didn't think it was particularly hospitable. I would have thought, but the Moat House is. And it was a nice, comfortable location now that they'd subdued all the baddies in the gnarly forest. Is it the gnarly forest next to the Moat House? Is that the gnarly?
God, I can't remember. I know what you mean, though. Yeah.
Gnarly or Vesby.
The one that leads up to the temple.
Yeah. It's the forest to the east of the Moat House, anyway. Which is where I put the Forbidden City. I changed it from a jungle setting to a warm forest setting, and stuck it in the middle of there. And it worked fine. But yes,
so adventures to fix up and inhabit yourself. I got to say, Ravenloft would probably be the best one. That castle is just awesome.
It is, but
once they put some toilets in it, yeah. Right.
Well, maintaining it may be kind of rough. It's a bad neighborhood, but
I want to know which forest it was now, because Dirty History and Hobbies, total different woodman.
Don't make me go grab my maps.
Yeah. What's the forest to the east of Hamlet? I'm googling that. Greyhawk map. Unless someone wants to. It's been such a while. It's just a long time since I've played it. But
speaking of Greyhawk, there's
we've lost
for funding for the Gary Gygax World Builder Kickstarter.
Oh yeah, I didn't back that.
That's your thing. Get in on it.
Yeah, I saw something about that the other day. Yeah,
I didn't back that because I couldn't justify it. But then I had the horror
on the Orange Express, the board game suddenly appeared.
Yeah. I had that. I had that
that
wave in front of my nose. Yeah, and I've backed that instead. I have done a few extra hours at work recently because of not having any weekend cover. So I can do that.
Yeah, that was kind of the last of my from all the overtime I did. Is I backed at a fairly high level on this one, so I can get everything hardcover.
Just gonna say thank you, Doof, for joining us. I know it's late where Doof is, so he does tend to hop on and hop off. So that's fine.
Well, first time I've met him, so nice meeting you, dude. Cheers.
Right, let's have a little look at this map.
One thing we should mention before we end the stream, John, as well, is what we're hopefully going to be doing on Friday.
Of course. Hello, Flint Fireford. You have joined when we're 4 minutes from the end of the stream. But hey ho, such is life. Yeah, it is the gnarly. It's the gnarly forest. I was right. Yes. My Greyhawk knowledge. The Vesby's further north.
Certified gamer moment.
But on Friday, using a combination of the Discord and the stream, I am hoping to run a game of Mafia or Werewolf or whatever you want to call it, where you have about 8 players, 2 of whom are bad guys, 6 of whom are town. But the bad guys know who the other bad guy is, and they've got to work as a team to try and eliminate all the town. And I'd like to play it live on a stream with me refereeing it. So if that's tempting to you, and you're available from 9:30 UK time on Friday, and you don't mind having your voice projected on a live stream, you just need a microphone. I mean, a camera will help, but you don't need it. And you want to play the game, then you're more than welcome. The details are in the Discord. I am still looking for 3 more players. If I don't get 3 more, I can run with 2 more players. But if I don't get at least 2 more players, then we won't be able to play, because we need a decent number of players for it. We've got 5 signed up, plus me as referee. So if you want to play, let us know in the Discord. Join in. We'll have some fun. I've played the game many, many times on internet message boards, but I've never played it live, and I've never run it live. I've never even had even attempted to have a game either playing or running it live. So it should be entertaining.
I'll be at work, but I'm definitely going to listen while I can.
Yeah, and if that doesn't go ahead, then we'll just play the Lone Wolf book that we've been reading through. I don't know how much of that one's left. I don't think there's very much left of it, that book. But it's a backup plan. So yes, Iman will be playing. Who else have we got?
Yes.
We've got Manfred, Joker, Midu, and
Snufflegrunt, I think.
Snufflegrunt signed up so far. So we are looking for 3 more. Ideally, I can fit up to 4 more, so between 2 and 4. But it's first come, first serve for those places. Should be fun.
We would all really appreciate it.
Yes, we would. We would. So, right. I think we are. Yeah, it's 1 minute to midnight. So, I've got work in the morning. Iman, have you got work tomorrow? Oh, it's
Easter holidays.
Easter holidays. Andy, have you got work tomorrow? Or?
Well, I've got work, but I'm also on call all night just in case some silly bugger decides to call. So,
yeah,
but that's okay.
Yeah. I'm going to be taking my my rally seeding to work to finish that, to do a few little amendments. But
Max Verstappen's dad.
Yes. If you know your motorsport, I've just seeded a rally event, and Max Verstappen's dad has entered. Jos Verstappen. That's quite an honour. I've put him in car 14. Hopefully, people expecting him to run that far back, but hey ho, that's the way it'll be.
Had to throw out a couple more Hulks for the group here.
Oh, thank you, Halakar. Who got those Hulks?
Longshot, Zadarok, RPG Dad, Jason Jacobson, and Winnie Eller.
Zatarok
I don't recognize any of those.
Zatarok is Mrs. Squirrel Hermit.
Okay.
RPG Dad is.
Oh, I know RPG Dad.
Yeah, he pops in with O'Neill Flynn on some of the other channels in Discord. So
I've seen RPG Grandma on here a few times.
Yeah.
No relation. I've already asked.
Oh. Yeah, they've got different surnames. One's called Dad and one's called Grandma. They've just got the same Christian name. Anyway, Andy, you don't have a channel. Halakar, you don't have a channel. Iman, you do. So you get to shill your channel.
Thank you. Intellectual Quandary. Mostly video game stuff. I'm live streaming Bloodborne on Sundays at the moment. So if you like Lovecraftian stuff, check it out. I'd appreciate it. That's all.
Oh, video games, John, you did it. I watched you playing Warcraft the other day, so I had to get out StarCraft 2, and I stayed up way too late that night.
Sorry, not sorry. If Flint Fireforge is changing his name to RPG Cousin, you're joining the RPG family. Yes.
Zug Zug.
Yes. I should change mine to RPG Bastard Child. But yeah, you all know I am, of course, I am the old geek. I put out videos as regularly as I can. Unfortunately, I was too busy yesterday to do my usual Tuesday video. So I hope you are satisfied with the stream tonight instead. I'll make a video next Monday.
So being from England, would that make you John Fogg instead of John Snow?
John constantly moist.
Yes. I say John Dam. Yeah.
John, yes. We've had Elfbait on earlier. Elfbait has a channel. Check out it is simply Elfbait. We had Bear on earlier. He's Society of Role Playing Gamers. So check out his channel. Also got to thank Doof and Daniel and Saxius, our other contributors on the stream tonight. And Halakar, always good to see you. Andy, nice to see you on the stream for the first time.
Second.
Is it the second time you've been on the stream?
Yeah.
Oh.
Quite a while ago, but yeah.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought we'd only ever become acquainted on Discord through chat, but do you remember what stream it was you were on?
Oh, blimey, it was a while ago. I can't remember. It was one of these, but I can't remember which one.
All right. No problem. Flint Fireforge has a channel, so yeah, you can shill away in chat. I don't mind people shilling. You do your shillage. Dirty History and Hobbies has a channel. Who else have we got with channels? Grumpy Old Slan has a channel.
Mage was on earlier.
Mage's Musing was on earlier. Yes. G, if you like Northern Soul music, check out Gene's channel. He plays all sorts of rare records.
Richard the Dungeon Crawler, does he have one?
Richard the Dungeon Crawler was on earlier. Yes, he's got a channel. So I apologize for anybody else I may have missed who I haven't called out, but thank you everybody for being involved in chat tonight. We had quite a productive stream, I think.
It's good.
TN Tori has a channel, and I like TN Tori's quite new to. I think she's quite new to running games, and she always asks questions, and is always grateful for answers she gets given. So it's always nice when she pops into chat. There's Zaturok saying thank you, Halakar.
Welcome,
Mike. No problem. Thanks for tuning in. But I'm going to head off now. Thank you, Halakar, for those memberships.
welcome.
Pleasure having you on as always. I'll be streaming again, as you know, on Friday. Hopefully it'll be a game of Werewolf Mafia if we get enough players. If we don't, it'll be Lone Wolf. But until then, I've been the Old Geek. See you all.
Ciao.
Good night.
Good night.